Hello and welcome everybody to the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. I'm the roller half of this show, Josh, and Rob, the other half of the podcast, is Mr. Peeters on the other side of this.
Hi everyone.
Hey, there he is. Big moments filled this weekend's races in Nashville, England, and New Hampshire. A sold-out crowd watched a father-son duel at Nashville Fairgrounds. One of them went on to win. If you haven't heard, you will find out who it was here. Big moment, big moment. What does that mean for the future of the track? We're also going to talk about that a little bit as well. And SRX kind of wrapping up the series there. Its first season. The relationship between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen took a strong dose of sour apples when the two collided on the first lap of the British Grand Prix. And at New Hampshire, what arguably is the biggest playoff upset ever in this system was dished out by Mr. Aric Almirola in the darkness-shortened Cup Series race on Sunday. So we got a lot to talk about. We got some strong feelings, got some strong opinions, I'm sure. Rob and I haven't talked about this at all. So we're going to go ahead and kick this show off, get started. He's got a little bit of news to tell you, so Rob's Racing Report, here it is.
Hey everybody, it's Rob's Racing Report. We have a decent amount of news today, but we actually are going to keep it a little bit short because there's a lot of things to discuss. I mean, they were talking about, like, on the radio shows or whatever, Sirius XM, NASCAR, they're like, how are we going to talk about all of this in 2 weeks? I'm like, well, we have an hour and 45 minutes to talk about it, and what are we going to do about it? So let's try and get through it here. Starting off with some sports car news. How about this? This is going to be interesting. So Racer has learned, this is a Racer article from Racer.com. They learned that due to the newly ratified prototype convergence between IMSA, the ACO, and the WEC, global automotive group Stellantis, which includes American brand Dodge, is considering a new American campaign using the 98X8 hypercar in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, with the Peugeot LMH is being considered for either a part or full-time IMSA campaign with Dodge branding. So this would be very interesting to see a Dodge branded car, not specifically made by Dodge, but still branded by Dodge, in sports car racing again. I don't think we've seen this since they pulled the plug on the Viper program and the SRT program and everything. That was always cool when it was around, but when they pulled the plug on that was very disappointing. So this could be a very big deal because it's been a while, I think, since we've seen Dodge in motorsports. Dodge has been, I feel like, a staple in motorsports for almost 50 years, almost maybe 60 years, and in the last couple of years they've been kind of absent from motorsports.
Well, it seemed like when we talk about the recession and money cutting and here's how you're going to pay back the government loan, Dodge and Chrysler, before it was with Stellantis, said, well, we're just going to cut our motorsports program, and that seemed like that was how they saved money, unfortunately. But it's good to see. Hopefully this happens, and is this... I'm not going to get my hopes up about Dodge returning to NASCAR, but I mean...
that might still be a long way away.
That might still be a long ways off, but this is not something I expected to see a Dodge branded, or whether it's like you mentioned, a car made by Dodge or not, in racing. I didn't expect this, so...
It's pretty cool. So we're going to move on here to the NASCAR news, and the NASCAR news is really, really big news because this is like Sternbaum blowing up everything. This is the crazy stuff that I think it was rumored for a long time, and it's now essentially been confirmed. So the first part is Kyle Larson has signed a contract with Hendrick Motorsports through 2023, and HendrickCars.com will be sponsoring 35 of the 38 races each in the next 2 seasons. So this is interesting. We talked about this a little bit too, but it's been mentioned on other news sites and by various media, that Rick Hendrick has really seen a huge return on his HendrickCars.com website as a businessman, because racing is a business. This is what it is. You're trying to sell stuff, and Rick Hendrick has his own endeavors outside of his race team, and apparently just slapping his own logo on his car is making him more money than selling sponsorship on it would be, which is very interesting. So much so to the point that they've essentially said, yeah, we don't need sponsors anymore. We don't need you guys. We're not going to sell hood space for the 5-car anymore. We're fine putting HendrickCars.com on it. And this is really interesting because I think about all the drivers who have driven with HendrickCars.com. Dale Jr., Dale Jr. drove a HendrickCars.com car. Mark Martin drove HendrickCars.com cars. And you're sitting here telling me...
Chase Elliott did in the ARCA series.
That's right. Chase Elliott did.
Casey Kane did.
Well, I mean, I care about Casey Kane, but how many other people did?
William Byron did last year.
Not anything. Not to take anything away from Willie B.
You're talking about like big names. You're talking just.
I'm talking about big names, which is again, I left Casey Kane out because I understand what he is. It doesn't mean I don't love him. I love him to death. I'd do anything to see him race again. But my point is, this is very huge. Like Kyle Larson apparently is so huge. Like I'm so surprised at Kyle Larson's immense popularity. It almost seems as though like he's. I don't want to say he's overtaking Chase Elliott as most popular driver, but I actually want to see what the voting is for this year. I want to see if Kyle Larson's in the voting.
I think I think he's the biggest draw for the dirt fan to NASCAR. I don't think any other dirt driver, and Casey Kane's one of those guys who has translated into stock cars, has brought this many fans with him. I just think he's that likable of a guy and personality, and he's that talented that, if you were just a dirt fan, but you're a Kyle Larson fan or you really respect what he does, I'm going to go watch him in NASCAR, and then you see him winning. Of course, winning cures everything. Winning's going to draw you in. Winning's going to make you want to buy a T-shirt. That stuff too. And what that has translated for Rick Hendrick, and I think it was, I didn't mention it in here, and I apologize, but they did say that this isn't coming out of Rick's pocket. This is coming out of the marketing budget for Hendrick Cars, the Hendrick Automotive Group, or one of the two. I can't remember now. So Rick's not paying for this at all. This is strictly out of their budget. We're like, okay, well, good for them. It shows sponsorship works. All right,
that seems like an interesting way of moving money around.
Yeah,
from one part of your company to another.
It is. I'm sure. I don't know how they have that. I don't know if it's split, if it's two different entities, or if it's still one. But either way, it's still cool to see. And sponsorship works, folks. Sponsorship works.
It really does. But you mentioned that the dirt fans with Kyle Larson, and it's always interesting to me though, because the last time I was at the BC 39. Which was in 2019, so it was the last time they had it. When Kyle Larson came out and was introduced and was doing hot laps and everything, and was even racing, the fans were booing him, and I never understood. I didn't get that.
Well, did he say, was this hot off a comment that he said? Because he's had a couple comments where like he's either and I don't want to quote and misquote, but I know he said a few things like, winning the Chili Bowl would be bigger than the Daytona 500, or like winning this race in NASCAR would be bigger than this race in sprint car. So dirt race. So did he say something at that point in time?
I have to go back. I don't remember that. I don't think he did. This was before any controversy surrounded Kyle Larson at all.
Well, this is definitely before the biggest controversy of a year and a half ago.
Well, yeah, I was it was 2019.
This is I know he said comments in the past that have, I think, irked both sides, the stock car side and the dirt side. I was just
surprised about that. I did not expect to hear boos for Kyle Larson at a dirt race. That was the most surprising thing to me. I didn't expect that, and I asked around. I asked around, like on the internet, and I was like, and the main consensus that I got was that dirt fans don't like Kyle Larson because they view him as a traitor who went pavement racing.
Well, when I've seen him race, I know I've seen him race once at Kokomo, maybe twice. He didn't get booed there. He didn't get booed at Kokomo. Maybe
he's probably not going to get booed at Kokomo. How is he going to boo him there?
Car.
Even then, it just surprised me. Like that was the main consensus, the number one answer. Like if in the survey, the very non-scientific survey that I asked. The answer was that they view him as like a traitor who went pavement racing, and I'm like, well, how do you view Casey Kane? How do you view all these other drivers that you would cheer? How do you view Brad Sweet? Steve Kinzer went pavement racing multiple times.
Yeah,
like nobody boos him. I mean, granted, Steve Kinzer didn't do it full time. I mean, he tried to, and NASCAR didn't.
Yeah, he got the boot. But I think maybe you just caught a bad crop of fans, or the wind was blowing the wrong direction that day. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on because this is the next big piece of news, and this is where some of my desire to discuss some things comes in because I'm going to talk about this here. And I don't know where else we're going to be able to talk about it, so I want to discuss it during this portion.
Do it.
So some of the biggest dominoes have fallen in NASCAR's 2021 silly season. Austin Cindric has been confirmed as the next driver of the number 2 Team Penske Ford. And then that means that instead of going to the 21 next year, which was already announced last year, the replacement for Matt DiBenedetto will now be Harrison Burton. So that is the biggest domino. So Matty D still has to find another ride. I mean, that was confirmed. I mean, Daniel McFadden tweeted this out, that he heard it on SiriusXM NASCAR, that Penske called in and basically told DiBenedetto, hey, you knew about this, bud. You knew this was going to happen. We gave you another year to build your brand. Now go do what you can do. Now you're on your own. He knew about this. And then this is interesting too. So Brad Keselowski's not going to return to Penske. So this is the biggest piece of news. So Cindric's taking over the 2. Everything else is staying the same.
Coming out later tomorrow.
By the time you're listening to this news will already be confirmed. But Roush has an announcement on Tuesday morning, which has already happened by the time you're listening to this. But they're probably going to announce Brad Keselowski as the next driver. I don't know what else is going to happen. Don't know what Ryan Newman's future, Chris Buescher's future. Don't know if any of that is even going to be discussed. Probably not. I don't know. But the worst kept secret is probably that Brad Keselowski is going to Roush with an ownership stake as well. Again, because this has not happened yet, and we're recording this podcast, we can't discuss it. But next week we'll be able to discuss it better, more in depth, I'm sure. But this is the biggest. This was the biggest domino, I think, that affected a lot of the NASCAR community, because, and I want to talk about this, and a lot of it does unfortunately center around Matt DiBenedetto, who is the odd man out in all of this. Yeah, he is the odd man out. He is the guy who's not going to be in a ride next year. Cindric and Burton are going to be 2 rookies battling for Rookie of the Year, and have to find someplace else. Yep. A lot of people who've thrown around, where could he wind up? Well, number one, I've heard that it's probably not going to be that Trackhouse second car, because that Trackhouse second car is probably going to go to either Ross Chastain or somebody else that they are looking for. I've heard Ross Chastain's name in that group, but I haven't heard anything definitive. What the definitive things that I have heard is that it's going to be something you don't expect. So if we're expecting Ross Chastain, then I can assume that it's probably not going to be him. But you never know. And then Kurt Busch, obviously, the 2311 he's linked to that. Again, he's in discussions. I don't think anything has been confirmed yet, so don't want to say it has, but just speaking from what I have heard on the inside, from sources that I'm not going to name, that's just what I know. But despite that, it looks like Matty D's going to be kind of up a creek without a paddle here. And this is the thing that's interesting to me. This is the thing that I want to talk about, because, Matt DiBenedetto is, a lot of people really like this guy. This guy's got a lot of really hardcore, diehard fans. And I understand all of them want to see him do well and succeed. And I'm sure a lot of them are feeling upset that, he didn't get to continue with the Wood brothers. Look, I've been there, Casey Kane didn't get to continue with Hendrick. How do you think I felt? I felt Kane could still do it, and he won a race. Matty D hasn't won a race. Kane at least won a race in 2017. I look at that and I see, I sit there and I think, I feel your pain. I know what their fans are going through. I get it. Yeah. But at the same time, you have to understand that racing is a business. Yeah. And to my knowledge, I don't think Matt DiBenedetto brings any money to the table. I believe that this deal was specifically because Paul Menard is still giving the Wood brothers money, and because Menard's not driving the car, he gets to choose who the driver is. And
he pointed and said, I'm going to step away. You need to hire Matt DiBenedetto.
And they did. And it was going to be a 1-year deal. And then it wasn't a 1-year deal. They got him again. They got him for another year. But they told him, hey, this is your last year. They told him 2021 was going to be his last year. So he knew about this. And the thing that really kind of upsets me, I guess, I'm kind of upset with Matt a little bit here, because I feel like, if you knew about this, I don't understand. Because when he released this video on his social medias, where he was basically kind of in an overarching way, gave this impression that he was expecting to stay next year. Like, he was expecting the dominoes to fall in a way that was going to help him stay. And he seemed very disappointed when this didn't happen. And I think a lot of the fans felt this way as well. And the thing about this is, Matty D knew this already. Matty D knew he was going to be out of a ride at the end of the year, regardless, like long before he probably ever heard any rumors that Brad wasn't going to return to the team. The bottom line was, regardless of what he did this year, he was going to be replaced by Austin Cindric, which means he had this whole year to work his tail off to get some sponsorship to make him... Because, look, we live in this world where sponsorship is just as important, if not more important, than your skills behind the wheel. Right. Okay? So, Matty D, I get you. It's one thing to try and prove yourself behind the wheel. That's what you're trying to do right now, because this is the best car you're probably going to ever have at this point in your career, unless you can find some sponsorship. And I haven't seen him make any announcements for sponsors. I mean, he thanks Menards and everything, and that's fine, but dude, Menards isn't going to be sponsoring you next year. If you're not in the process of putting together deals to help get you some money to put together a funding package for a team that might need a good team, because there's going to be some good teams that might actually look at you if you could put together a sponsorship package. I think about that Trackhouse second car. You know, obviously Justin Marks, colleague too. You know, I think about all these teams, even GMS, you know, these teams that are going to be needing some money, needing a veteran driver to come in and help them out. Matty D, they're not going to call you if you don't have any money. They're not going to give you a call and say, hey, do you want to come drive your car, and let you go out there and drive sponsorless cars. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. This is reality. This is reality which you live in. Now, again, I also want to respond to some of the people that said, you know, Matty D didn't deserve another year in the 21. And I disagree with that. I think on paper he does deserve one. But the fact of the matter is, racing is a business. And he knew he wasn't going to get another year. And he didn't get another year. And you can't act upset when you already knew about this. I'm not saying Matty D's a bad driver. I don't think he is. I really don't agree with the take that, you know, he wasn't good enough in a Gibbs Xfinity ride. Okay, that's BS. When did Gibbs give him an Xfinity ride? Okay, for the races Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin didn't want to run. I mean, that's basically the only time he got. He didn't get to run a full season. If you give the guy a full season in a Gibbs car, he's going to do probably fine. You know, you give Matty D good seasons. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to make the playoffs, but that's okay. You don't need to make the playoffs. As long as you're consistent, keep the car out of the wall, and finish in the top 10 every week, I think that's all you can ask for. A top 15. I think that's all you can ask for out of a driver at this stage in NASCAR. And the fact of the matter is, Matty D's done that. But at the same time, dude, race team owners are not looking at stats alone. They're looking at what can you bring to the table in terms of not just experience, not just ability, but also money.
Well, you know, Landon Castle's an example of that one. Exactly.
You know, look, Quinn Half tried to pick a fight with Ryan Newman for God knows what reason over the weekend. Don't know why. When you're punching way above your weight class here, calm down. You know, look, Ryan Newman has a Daytona 500 victory, he has a Brickyard 400 victory, and he has the record, or I think he still has the record for most poles in a NASCAR season, which is an accomplishment I'm going to give him. He doesn't have a championship, but I'm always going to recognize Newman for that. They don't call him the Rocket Man for nothing. This guy can set up to qualify a car better than anybody else.
In the history of NASCAR.
Absolutely. Quinn Half, you're punching above your weight class here. But you're right. Landon Castle is a good example of that. Quinn Half brought money. Quinn Half sucks. Everybody knows. Everybody in the garage area knows Quinn Half sucks. Quinn Half probably knows he sucks. And to be honest with you, nobody cares, because you know what? Half somehow got money. He's got sponsors that are willing to sponsor him to run 37th every week. You know, if Matty D could, you know, put on his big boy britches and go out and get a sponsor like that, or get a sponsor like whatever's sponsoring Rick Ware's cars now. I mean, they'll Nutrec ODT or whatever that is. I don't know how jacked up their medicine prices are, but whatever they are, man, they must be raking in a lot of money if they can sink money into Cody Ware and I mean Roman Grosjean's fine, but Cody Ware, man, woo. Maybe Cody Ware an IndyCar I'd sponsor him, but not in a NASCAR, man. No way. But my point is, Matty D, dude, you've had all this time to build your brand. And it doesn't, and if you're still sitting there out there being like, I'm a free agent, I'm not talking to anybody, I'm taking offers, it's like, then you haven't learned, you haven't done anything that you've had a year to do. You've had a whole year to do this and you haven't done it. I can't feel sorry for you. I want to feel sorry for you. I really do. And I do honestly feel sorry for you because I do think you're a good driver. But it's hard for me to feel sorry for you when you're acting like you're back at square one when you should have had a leg up on all of this by now. Josh, I'm going to turn this over to you because I know I've talked a lot, and I want you to be able to get your thoughts out too.
My to kind of flip the script a little bit on people saying that he was done wrong and that this was unexpected. I think it became pretty clear. I brought this back up at Daytona. I remember this. I said, remember how mad Brad Keselowski was? Remember how mad he was that he didn't win that race? I think he knew he had to do something special quickly, and that was win the 500 if he was going to stay at Team Penske. He needed to pull a Simon Pagenaud, win the Indy 500, sticking with Team Penske, right? Well, that didn't come at all. Where'd he win earlier this year? Talladega, right? He won Talladega earlier this year.
Did he? I don't know. I don't remember.
I can't remember. Well, I can't remember. He won a race. He's in the playoffs. But anyways, my point is that it sort of became clear that, okay, yeah, Austin Cindric was announced he's going to the 21 in 22. But I never bought that fully. I said, there's always, these plans can change. And that's why I said what I said. And now we're seeing that play out where, yeah, we're recording this on, Monday. It's Tuesday morning now at this point, and we're probably going to find out that Brad Keselowski is going to go to Roush Fenway, going to have an ownership stake, probably change the name of the team, going to drive the famed 6 car, and that obviously has paved the way for Cindric to be in the 2. Maybe everyone thought, well, hold on, this could be an opportunity for Matt DiBenedetto to stick in the 21, to stay in the 21. I
think that's what he thought. I think that's what Matty D himself actually thought.
Well, I don't want to say that I think he thought it, but I would never have put all my eggs in that one basket. But his chances of staying dramatically increased once this whole thing became clear, like, okay, Keselowski, this rumor that Keselowski going to Roush Fenway and the offer, that doesn't get leaked unless that's like 90% true. And like it's going to happen, okay? That doesn't get leaked. That doesn't get out. But yeah, Matt DiBenedetto, I don't know. I don't want to even try to get into the head of a driver and know how difficult it is in this day and age to try to go out there and find a sponsor, especially when you say, I've been in this thing for how many years he's been in here? 5, 6, 8 years now. I've only been in a good car for 3 years, though. That Levine Family Racing Toyota wasn't too bad. He had an opportunity to win a couple races, but prior to that, he never had a shot to win a race unless he was running 10th on the final lap at Daytona or Talladega, and the front 9 cars crashed. He never had a shot. He gets in that 95 car, and he's got, okay, we've got 10 races here we can really focus on, and we might be able to win. And he should have won Bristol. He should have won Bristol, all right? If it wasn't for Ryan Newman, being Ryan Newman, we love you, Ryan. We're glad you raced hard for every position. That's fine. But you took one away from Matty D. And now, last year when Ford was relatively good, it took him a while to get used to a good car, all right? So that took a while, and then now Ford's struggling this year. So there's been races where he's run on par with the other 3 Penske cars. But I don't think there's been one race I can think of that stands out in my mind, at least, that I can say he was the best of the 4. Now, that's not to any discredit against him. Penske's not going to share everything with brothers, all right? They got to find some stuff out on their own. But, trying to find sponsorship. Going back to my point on this was, trying to find sponsorship. Say, I haven't won a race. I've been doing this for 200 some races, but I've only had a legitimate shot at a victory in a quarter of them. That's a tough sell. In a world where, Rob, you and I see it every day when you're on social media. These influencers, you can throw a couple $1,000s their way and to get the same views as someone on a sponsorship car, but yet, when you look at what you talked about, where Cindric, there's obviously a return on this, but you got to convince them. This isn't 2002 where I can walk up to Target and say, hey, you want to sponsor this car? We're going to run top 20, at least half the races. Sure. How much do you need? I need $10 million. Here's a check. Those days are gone. Those days aren't coming back. All right. The economy is too.
There's too many different advertising revenues now, especially with streaming media, with the internet, with social media, with, like you said, influencers and all that stuff. There's way cheaper and easier ways to get your message out there than shoving your face on a race car or a brand logo in a race car. For the CEOs and the CFOs and all those guys who actually like racing that are willing to do it, great. That's where their marketing budget goes.
You have to really put yourself out there as an athlete, especially in a racing athlete. You really have to put yourself out there and say, look, you sponsor me. You sponsor X amount of dollars. Here's what I'm willing to do for you. All right? Here's what I'm willing to do for your brand, your company, commercials, appearances, whatever it is. And again, I'm not going to put myself in someone in a race car driver's shoes and say, what you're willing to sacrifice, time-wise, during your week, during an off week, whatever. I'm not going to get into that because that is a completely different thing than this conversation here, just simply trying to go out there and find it because that's a personal deal. But yeah, I feel bad for Matt DiBenedetto. I have to say, I was a little shocked. To wrap it up, to put a bow in it, I was a little shocked. But I'm not surprised that they went with a guy who's got a partner in that being Harrison Burton with Dex Imaging. And Dex Imaging's already connected with Ryan Blaney.
Exactly.
And, so this was kind of like if there was going to be a guy.
I mean, if you can't make this business decision, get the heck out of the. This is a no-brainer business decision. I mean, if you can't make this decision, then you don't belong in business.
And you know what, Rob? I'm going to say this as my last thing. I'm sorry I didn't see this before. Because I didn't think about this with the Dex and
Hey, man, nobody did. I don't think I didn't. When I saw Harrison Burton, I was like, oh, wow. I didn't think, to be honest with you, I figured, okay, he's been with Toyota for this whole time. And then I didn't even think, I was thinking more Toyota. I wasn't thinking of sponsors. Yeah. And, you're right. That can happen. So, like you said, it's an unfortunate situation for Matt DiBenedetto. It's unfortunate for his fans. But if you're pundits like us, you kind of saw this coming around the turn. And my opinion still is, Matt, dude, if you could come up with a way to get a sponsor that is really going to get behind you 100% in the next 6 months, that's really what I would start working on right now.
3 months at most. Okay,
3 months. Because the silly season dominoes have already started falling, so his time is about out, if not running out. So, yeah.
Well, with that, Rob, I think we need to move on here to the next segment here. We're going to roll into the featured paint scheme. We're going with the 2008 NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. The last year Craftsman was involved before Marcus Lemonis with Camping World stepped in for its first stint, and of course became Gander for a few seasons later. But anyways, Craftsman, original sponsor of the series last year with them. Rob, who'd you pick?
Okay, so I've always said, Brian Scott had some really, really good paint schemes.
He had some awesome paint schemes.
It was really disappointing that they were mostly at the back of the field most of the time, but he had some of the best paint schemes in NASCAR for a long time. And this was one of them, and I actually really liked this one. So he had a number 16 Albertsons Chevrolet Silverado for Express Motorsports, and he didn't have a lot of great Albertsons paint schemes after this one. A lot of them were actually just black, or even the ones he ran in Cup were more of a petty paint scheme than really their own individual thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I picked this one, because I really liked the way that this one actually looked, and I don't think he had many ones after this. But this one was a very good one, because Brian Scott, I want to say his dad, I know his dad does the Shore Lodge Casino, but I think he has investments with Albertsons and Safeway, which is probably what got him the sponsorship. But the Albertsons scheme was great, because you didn't see an Albertsons paint scheme for a long time. I think Jason Keller had one, and that's where I learned about the brand the first time. Jason Keller had one in the Busch Series. Now that one was a great one. Yeah, the 57. And that one was a great paint scheme. I have the die-cast of it, actually.
I do too.
Great paint scheme. Great paint scheme. Beautiful. But then this one comes out, and I really like this one, because you have, I'm looking at it right here because I pulled it up. So you have this blue nose, and I like the fact that it had a blue nose. I actually like that a lot. I think that it actually made the logo stand out more than it made it fade in, because sometimes when you have the logo be the same color as the base, you can kind of have some problems and it doesn't exactly look right. You want to put a white background or a white square behind it or something. They didn't really need this one, because the blue was a different shade and it stood out. And I appreciate that. I like that. But then you have this light blue swirls on the side, or whatever this is. It looks like, I don't know how to describe it, but the side of this has this light blue, kind of like swooshes, kind of like wavy designs here. It's very beautiful, very pretty. And in general, this car, and it has actually like the yellow numbers on it. Actually, I didn't hate the yellow numbers. Actually, I thought they were very good. But then you have the white roof and the white deck lid, and that actually, I think, makes the whole paint scheme come together. It just really pops. It really looks like a good paint scheme that makes you think, hey, I might shop at Albertsons tonight when I get home. Or after the race, I might go out and shop. If you have one near you.
Yeah.
I don't have any Albertsons near me because we live in Indiana. Josh, I'm pretty sure they're only on the West Coast, aren't they? So you don't have any out in the Charlotte.
I'm pretty sure they're like the West Coast, Pacific Northwest, that kind of deal, yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're only out west, but and when I say out west, I mean like, I know they're in Colorado. I know that they're in I think they're in Kansas. I think there's some in Kansas.
They're west of us.
West of Indiana and Charlotte. Yeah, is the west of us. We don't have any Albertsons in our area, which is disappointing, but I don't know. I haven't actually. The one time I did go to Albertsons, I got a reusable shopping bag, because I always like to go to when I'm traveling or something, and I go and I see a grocery store brand that I don't have here. I always like to go and I buy a reusable bag, and then go to like a Walmart or a Kroger with these, or Aldi usually, because Aldi makes you use the reusable bags. Take these reusable bags, and they say Safeway and Albertsons on them, and people are like, wow, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I just took a trip out there and bought them. Or you can make up a lie and say, oh yeah, I used to live in Vail, Colorado, in the mountains. I used to ski every day. I don't know. I'm getting off topic.
Pictures? Oh crap!
Right. From when? Well, I visited Vail in 2009, but I never lived there. I only visited there for about, say, 6 hours, and I didn't ski either. I downhill mountain biked. I took a gondola up with a mountain bike, and then went to the top, and then just there's like the skiing trails, in the summer are just, they're mountain biking trails, but it's downhill, so it's not like hard. You're going downhill. It's really easy. So, but yeah, that's my featured paint scheme. All about Albertsons, Brian Scott. Brian Scott, he's Brian Scott. So where did he finish? Where I wrote it down here. He finished 16th in the points. So yeah, that sounds about standard for Brian Scott.
Express Motorsports had taken a very big nosedive from their back-to-back championships in 02 and 03.
Well, yeah. Or not 03. They didn't win in 03, did they?
Yeah, they did. Mike Bliss and Travis Quaffle.
That's right. You're right. Quaffle did. That's right. It was Quaffle. Okay. You're right. It was Quaffle. I'm sorry. I keep remembering Jimmy Smith, and for some reason I forgot that Musgrave was penalized. I'm so dumb sometimes. I associate things with stuff that's not fact. Josh, go ahead and tell us about your featured paint scheme.
Well, I'm going to throw a name out there that you, the listener, probably haven't heard before.
I haven't.
Not
just the listener. I don't know who this guy is.
I know I haven't. Philip McGilton. Yep, I said it. Philip McGilton.
Okay, so where did Bill Davis find this guy? I got to find out.
Yeah, he made 4 starts in the 22 for Bill Davis Racing in a Toyota in 2008. The first 4 of 2008: Daytona, Fontana, Atlanta, and Martinsville. But he drove this paint scheme that I'm going to talk about only on Daytona, the Miccosukee Resorts number 22 Toyota. And it's a weird mix. Like when you look at it, you're like, what alternate universe am I looking at? All right. Okay, you got the Bill Davis 22 and the James Finch paint scheme. I mean, you're like, okay, it's like Bill Davis and James Finch had a baby. That's what it is, and it's on a truck.
Their teams or whatever. Started a truck team together or something, but they didn't.
And they didn't. No, this was just this. So I mean, just imagine, the paint schemes you saw on the one in the Xfinity Series, the 09 in the Cup Series. The same paint scheme pasted on a truck. All right, that is your paint scheme. But you had the Bill Davis 22 that was on the car from 95 to 08. All right, it's white, black outlining, just like the 09 or the 1. Okay, so yeah, just copy and paste. So McGilton qualified 30th, but finished 12th. All right, not horrible. Now, he was supposed to run the whole season as a paid driver for Bill Davis, but was later released after those 4 races and replaced by Scott Speed in Michael Annett, with Scott Speed's backing from Red Bull and Annett's backing from Pilot and Flying J.
I looked this guy up real quick. So he ran the ARCA series in 07 for Bruco.
Right. Yep.
And he finished 6th, and his ARCA results are not great. 2 top 5s out of 23 races? Yikes.
Hey, driver.
What is this? 2 top 10s, 3 top 10s, 5 top 10s. Okay, I guess that's not bad, but everything else, 13th, 17th, 18th, 30th, 27, 19, 14, 29, 30. Yeah, just 6th in points in ARCA of all things. And then he goes to the Truck Series. He goes 12th at Daytona, 10th at California, 16th at Atlanta, 16th at Martinsville.
Not horrible, but
it's not horrible. I mean,
I think now I was going to say this, but with sort of an asterisk beside it, I didn't see hard proof of what I found on this. So I don't want to say this is the gospel, but evidently he had a series of companies that when he was fired from this job all shut down. So I'm thinking he just wasn't paying his bills as the paid driver.
So it's kind of like a Kevin Conway situation.
Something like that, maybe.
Yeah,
again, I don't know. I don't want to say it's a gospel. I was going to mention it, but I was like, "Okay, look, here's what I found. I can't get any hey, this is firmly what happened." So Philip McGilton, the only 4 truck starts he ever had was those 4 there, and one of them was in this paint scheme. I mean, it's just when I was going through there, because I had a few in mind for this season, but when I found that one, ooh, I gotta talk about that one. There's no way I'm not. I gotta talk about it because that's really, honestly, one of my favorite paint schemes. Whether it was on a Dodge or a Chevy, did he have? I don't think he was with Toyota or Ford, but whatever it was, James Finch had some awesome paint schemes. So
I think actually, I know they had Dodge.
I think they might have run Ford.
I think they did run no. They didn't. I think they didn't run. If it wasn't a Dodge or a Chevy, I think it was just unbranded.
That could have been too, because he really was. Because if you listen to the James Finch podcast, the Dale Jr. download with James Finch, I believe from 2019. I might be wrong on that. Maybe early 2020. You'll find out that he was like, whoever was willing to give me an engine, pay for it. I'm there. I'm your guy. But yeah, so that's my feature paint scheme there. I think we had 2 good ones there. Rob, you're absolutely right. Talk about brand loyalty. You see that it makes me want to go shop at Albertsons, right? I want to go there.
Have a good paint scheme like that.
Yeah.
It makes it pops that, it makes you want to go shop there. I mean, I could think about, some of the Kroger cars, even that Doherty runs, JTG Doherty runs. I mean, I sit there and I think, yeah, I'll show up at Kroger tonight. Yeah, whatever. I don't care.
Good sponsorship with a good paint scheme. It works every time, folks. So if you're a business owner listening to this, remember that. And next time you're looking to find some advertising dollars. So all right, let's move on to SRX, the first of the three major races here we're going to talk about on this show today. They wrapped up their inaugural season at Nashville Fairgrounds. And let's just jump right into this, all right? The first point here that I thought was really cool, because this is for the fans, all right? Yes, there's a championship. Yes, Tony Stewart clinched that championship after the first two heats. But he said, hey, I want to make an executive decision. I drew the poll, or second or whatever. Yeah, he drew the poll. I'm going to go back to fourth, and I'm going to switch with Bill so Chase and Bill can start on the front row. That is what you call for the fans.
Do we classify that as a promoter's option?
I'm going to classify that as a promoter's option, and I'm the boss, so I can do what I want. That's what that is. I mean, and you know what? We got a great show out of it. So he made a great decision, because there for a few laps, it was Chase and Bill side by side, each corner down the straightaway. Chase and him are racing clean. Also, you don't want to wreck your dad. You don't want to wreck your son. Right? That'd be horrible. And that's what I was worried about. Like, oh my gosh, they're both going to wreck, and this place is going to empty out real quick. And that would be just horrible. But they raced really clean. And Bill was given the test car, because they obviously could not figure out what was wrong with his car, his normal car. So they gave him the test car, threw some purple on it. Didn't even have time to put the 9 on the top of the roof. Did you notice that, Rob? They didn't even have time to do that.
I didn't actually. I had no idea.
Yeah, they didn't have time to do that, so they just had L8 on the side, 9 on the wing, and that was it. They didn't even have it on the top. But the race, was great. I thought it was good. I really like what I saw from Nashville Fairgrounds. I've enjoyed watching. If you haven't gone back and watched an Xfinity race from the late '90s, mid to late '90s at Nashville Fairgrounds, do it. I don't know if I can't say I've ever watched a Cup race at Nashville Fairgrounds. I don't know if there's any of them on YouTube or not, but I know there's some Xfinity races on YouTube, Busch Series back then, that are on there, because they raced there up until, through 2000. But I enjoyed the racing. It was great to see the sellout crowd too. I felt bad for the mayor. He got booed. At the start there. He's more of a friend than an enemy on this. He's just...
Yeah, he really is.
This is where I'm like, crap. Ignorant, misinformed race fans.
Yeah, like don't kill the guy who's trying to help you.
I feel like, though, if I'm a good PR guy, or if I'm Tony Stewart or Ray Evernham, I'm going to be like, hey, John, you might get booed here. We're glad you're here. We're good. We know you want to bring Speedway Motorsports in, but you might get booed here. All right, you might get booed. Just pull off to the side. Don't say it very loud. Don't say it loud in front of people, but you might get booed. Just be prepared for that. Okay. I felt bad for him. Like, when I saw them, like, oh, crap. Not a good way to start the race, but you know what? The racing cured it all, and hopefully, it was a good show. Rob, what did you think?
It was a great show. I thought I was amazed by the crowd size. It was definitely probably the biggest crowd I think SRX had all season. I mean, it was bigger than Luxor Raceway, at least I thought. I mean, I was there. I was there at LOR. It looked huge. I mean, it felt like it was packed at LOR. I felt like I was at a NASCAR race, and I hadn't felt like that for years at LOR. But, at Nashville, I was like, man, you'd think that this was NASCAR. I mean, they have a bunch of NASCAR drivers, and even Chase Elliott, which probably helped. Chase Elliott's going to sell tickets. I mean,
that was certainly a strategic move on a number of fronts to bring Chase in. Yeah.
I mean, he's going to sell tickets to that, and especially when it's him and Bill going together as well, versus Tony Stewart and Bobby Labonte. I think you're going to have a lot of people who are very nostalgic for that era of NASCAR, myself included. Because that's where you and I grew up with that. You and I both grew up with Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, Bill Elliott, every week watching those guys. We both grew up with it, so I'm sure that there was a lot of people in the stands that were the same situation. My friend Joe Spears, happy birthday, by the way. It was just his birthday. I want to wish him a happy birthday. He was there. He was actually at the Speedway. He wasn't working because he covered the NASCAR race at the Super Speedway, but he was there as a fan at the SRX race. I don't know why. I didn't think he was that big into race. I knew he liked IndyCar, but I never thought I'd ever see him at an SRX race. I didn't think he
for Elio.
Okay, maybe, but I didn't think I was going to see him there. But he said it was huge, but the facility needs a lot of upgrades.
Well, that's why it's in the position that it's in. I think personally, not to interrupt you, Rob, but I think the trucks could show up there tomorrow and race and be fine. But if it's going to host an Xfinity race, definitely a Cup race, it needs attention.
Oh, it can't. It can't host a Cup race in that.
It can't host a Cup race. There's no way. It just can't. And that's sort of the sad part that I just don't understand. No one's had a problem. I'm getting very off topic here. No one's had a problem with Nashville Fairgrounds operating for the last decade. All right, with a couple different promoters that they've had. But when Speedway Motorsports shows up, wanting to bring NASCAR in and answer all these questions and or meet the demands, I guess the way I should phrase it, of the community, they're up in arms about no way, we don't want you here. Hold on a second.
I don't even understand what is it going to do. It's going to boost the economy.
Yes.
And I mean, if you're worried, look, first of all, we addressed the stupidity of moving next to a racetrack and complaining about the noise. We addressed that. But if you're upset about that, if you're legitimately upset about that, first of all, I want you to take a brain IQ test and get back to me and let me know what you score on there, because I'm going to guess that you're going to just barely beat out Forrest Gump. But I'm also saying that it's not NASCAR going there. One weekend a year, one extra weekend a year is not that big of a deal.
Well, how many days a week or how many days of the year can they test right now? Can I call the track and say, "Hey, am I able to test?" My guess is it's upwards of 320 days a year out of 365. All right, okay, I'm just spitballing there. Well, now you're saying, well, here's a structure. We're going to have 10 race weekends a year. And we're going to say, I don't remember if there was a number thrown out there, but I'm just going to spitball and say, here's 20 days a year you can test. And it probably is less than that. So at worst, you're talking about, 50 days of the year. There's going to be on-track activity. And on top of that, you're going to be able to host concerts, because part of the agreement would be hey, we can come in here as the city, as the fair, and we go, hey, we want to bring Carrie Underwood and Brad Paisley in and have a concert. Okay, sure. Here's the date.
I'm pretty sure you could get better venues for them to play in Nashville. But you're right.
Yeah, I'm just saying, here's places where you could do, you're going to have concerts, other city functions that use the track for lease for the city events. Look, in economic development, it's the same thing I tell people. I'm when they say public money is being used to finance a professional basketball, baseball, football stadium, whatever. Okay, that money, Rob, Lucas Oil Stadium, remember when that was being built and people were all up in arms that the money, Indianapolis money, Marion County money, and state of Indiana money was being used to finance that? They've made that money back 10 times. They made.
And I don't want to hear any arguments about that, because if you look at not just Lucas Oil Stadium, not just did Lucas Oil Stadium host a Super Bowl, which is something that the small market city of Indianapolis never thought was going to be possible.
No, they made half the money back in that weekend alone.
Yes, but not only that, you were able to expand the convention center and look at how many conventions come to Indianapolis now and boost the economy tenfold even more. You have PopCon, Gen Con, all these things. Like, people love these. Like, I've been to PopCon. I know people have been to Gen Con. Like, these are huge events. People fly in from all over the world for these things. I mean, obviously, it's a bit you're nervous hearing that in the post-COVID world. But before then, this was a big deal. You made all that money up. There was nothing really to complain about because most, if not all of that money went back into the community.
Yes. So you got hotels, restaurants, bars. It's why, like, I'm going to use this example. I'm going to twist the clock on you and say Oakland, California. They are hurting because the way, of course, that you got a completely different mindset there in that state, in that city, in that area compared to most of the country when it comes to professional sports, that they're not willing to finance it. Okay, well, you've lost the Warriors. All right, they're gone. They're in San Francisco now. All right, you lost the Raiders. They're in Las Vegas now. You got the Athletics, and the Athletics gave them the ultimatum. It is this terminal, Howard Terminal, I believe, the Howard Terminal baseball field proposal, or nothing, or we're leaving. And I guarantee you,
and they're probably going to go to Las Vegas.
They're probably going to go to Las Vegas.
Join the Raiders out in Las Vegas, and if you're an Oakland sports fan, you're going to become a Las Vegas sports fan overnight.
And if you're an Oakland bar owner, you're PO'd because
lost a lot of revenue.
Yeah, because you took 41 basketball games away, 8 potentially more if you make the playoffs and you're a home team, football games away, and you took.
Oh well, now the NFL added an extra game, so that's 9. That would have been, you would have had an extra day, extra Sunday that now you don't have. So this news probably pisses you off more than it makes you excited for football season.
Yeah, you got 81 ball games a year now, and that I guarantee is going to be gone. So you talk about economic impact. Don't look at what is currently going on with cities that have teams. Look at what has happened to cities that have lost teams. So how can I put that on the track side? All right. Well, the sellout crowd, the enthusiasm that this SRX race generated. All right. Hopefully, it's going to prove. I'm a big believer in doing what's right, but you should listen to your people, the people who voted for you. I don't know if the fair board is voted in or not. I have no idea down there. I don't know, and I apologize for my ignorance on that one. But the fair board should look at this and say, okay, look, yep, we have a good portion of people who kind of are no. Some of them could change their mind. We have a lot of undecideds, and we have about a third of people who are saying yes to this, all right? What can Speedway Motorsports coming in here, fixing up this place, running it for years, saying sign a 10-year lease on it, because it's going to be a long-term. This isn't going to be a 3 or 4 year deal. This is going to be a long-term deal, because Speedway Motorsports wants to be in it for the long haul, right? They're going to dump all this money in. They want to get as much money as they can out. But what can a 30, 40,000 seat place, one big race weekend in a year, you're going to have the All-America 400, and you have your 7-8 weekly racing events, then all the concerts, all the other events that go on there, how can we use this upgraded facility along with the soccer stadium that's building in next door, along with the fair? How can we use this still with it's upgraded? Because, when you upgrade it, you might think you're going to be able to lose what you can do because it's going to be fancier, it's going to be nicer, and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is, I really hope this helps swing the fair board to say we're going to go against public opinion and we're going to look at the dollar signs on this one. and look, you might be against this, but when we get to pave that road, or the city gets to pave that road that you've been complaining about that needs paved because we're going to get all this extra money in, I think that's the right way to go on that one. Rob, anything else on that point before I ask you about the big SRX question here?
You have to spend money, make money. I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, especially when you're talking about infrastructure, public tax dollars, all that stuff. If you want to secure a brighter future for yourself and for the community and things like that, the fact of the matter is, the only way it's going to happen is if you spend money. I mean, people hate raising taxes, and I get that, But at the end of the day, you got to look at where that tax money goes. If you might say, okay, I hate, I look at this the same way. This is how I try to look at it, because there's things I think in life that are unfair, but I try and think about it like as positive as I can. And I look at it this way. I say, if my tax dollars are going to fund the sports team, this sports stadium, whatever. I look at that and I say, well, first of all, I get enjoyment out of sports, so this is fine with me. But for the people who don't get enjoyment out of sports, they're going to see all of that money generated by sports fans in the community come back to the community eventually. It's going to circulate its way, either one way or another. You're going to see local businesses survive, local businesses get bigger, hopefully, and become more successful. Because, you look around, I look around just at downtown Indianapolis, for example. You look at all those local restaurants.
Yeah.
There's so many that survived the pandemic and so many that didn't. And you look at those ones that did survive the pandemic, and those were the ones that were popular to begin with. Those were the ones that everybody's going to. St. Elmo's. Everybody's going to go to St. Elmo's. Everybody's going to go to Kilroy's. Everybody's going to go to Brothers.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Not everybody was probably going to go to Champs. Not everybody was probably going to go to the Ram Brewery, even though I did. I loved it, and it closed, and it was actually where my fiance and I had our first date, which was really disappointing because we went there the next year on our anniversary, and we sat at the same table, and we got the same stuff, and then we were going to do the same thing the next year, and it closed.
Oh, that's sad.
So it was really disappointing. But still, my point is, you look at that, and it's like, why you think to yourself, okay, why did these survive? Why did these survive? Well, there's a number of reasons, there's a number of reasons, obviously, but one of the reasons among the multiple is probably because they're tourist destinations. People who are traveling to Indianapolis for any reason are going to eat here first. They're going to eat at those locations. Everybody, people who are made of money are going to go eat at St. Elmo's.
Yeah.
People who aren't made of money and dollar iced teas on Wednesdays are going to go to Kilroy's and good breadsticks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but that's kind of what I'm saying is you have to think about stuff like that. You have to think about those long-term goals is how can we benefit the community? How can we benefit the local businesses around us? And the fact of the matter is the only real way to do that is to spend money to make your city and your destinations, your events, your fairgrounds, your whatever, into places people want to come. And not places that just locals want to come. You got to attract out-of-towners. And I know some people don't like out-of-towners, but in order for stuff to survive like that, you got to attract out-of-towners. And believe me, man, it's more beneficial than to kind of let things go into disrepair. It's way better than letting things go into disrepair. Not saying that the Fairgrounds Raceway is going to go into disrepair, but you could generate a lot more money and get a lot more publicity for your town, for your city, if you have a major event that causes people to want to come into your city. Different people. I mean, not just like one subset of people, but like as many different groups of people as you possibly can. That's what you want to do at the end of the day, is try and make your city, your town, a tourist destination that people want to go to, because then that helps the overall town, community, and local businesses. So that's just the stuff. I mean, I hope people in Nashville look at that. I'm sure many of them have, but the people who are against it, I hope they at least take that kind of thinking into account. Yeah. Because it's easy to be mad at everything. I think we live in a world and a culture nowadays where outrage culture. Anything that we don't like, we're outraged about, and we have to tell everybody about it on Twitter. We have to go to our local town council meetings and scream at our Congress people, or scream at these people who make the decisions or whatever. We do that, and I think
it's becoming more accepted.
Yeah, we as humans have to be able to stop and take a look at other perspectives and be better at looking at other perspectives. And that's not just for this situation, it's for every situation, but primarily with this situation, I think people just need to take a look at other perspectives. It's okay. I mean, I understand people who are upset about it. I didn't insult people who are upset. I'm sure people have legitimate reasons to be upset about it. I mean, if they moved next to a racetrack and they knew that it was a racetrack there, then you're kind of stupid. If you didn't know there was a racetrack there, well, you're still kind of stupid, because you should have probably at least done your research on the area a little bit better. Yeah. I know apartments.com always gives you a noise rating when you go through the listing.
Yeah.
Every apartment I've ever looked at on apartments.com has a noise rating. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, the information's there in front of you. You just got to take it. Yeah. But for the people who do have, I'm sure there are people who have legitimate complaints. I hope that they, those are the people I'm talking about. The rational, the reasonable people. These are the people I'm talking to. Like, take a look at it from this perspective, and if you're still against it, then that's fine. But at the very least, look at it from that perspective.
All right, real quick here, Rob, did you kind of give your thoughts on the inaugural SRX season, what you like, and maybe what you want to see in for 22?
I really liked it. I sat in on a press conference on Wednesday. They had a press conference on Wednesday. They press conference every Wednesday, and I usually like to sit in on them. I try to ask some questions here and there, but usually I just sit in and listen because it's interesting. And I wasn't doing any writing this week, so I just like to listen. Tony Stewart was there, so I wanted to just listen to what he had to say. And basically what he told me was, 2022 for SRX has not even been discussed. Like, they probably are just discussing it now. Like, they're probably getting around to discussing it right as we're talking, or right around now, if that. They might not even talk about it till next week. I don't know. But all we know is right now is that they were just trying to get through the first season, and now that the first season is over, they can start talking about next season. So any ideas, I guess, for next season is, I think a lot of people would have liked to see probably 2 more races on the schedule, probably a couple more racetracks. Tony Stewart even talked about how cool it would be to take these cars on a road course, and that would be something. I don't know what road course it would be. It would have to be a pretty historical road course, I would think, but it couldn't be like a road course that you could go see racing on all the time. You couldn't go to like a Laguna Seca, you can't go to Watkins Glen, you can't go to like Sebring. Huh?
Willow Springs.
There you go. Like a very underutilized road course that's very challenging for drivers. Like Willow Springs, like something like that. Like Heartland Park. How about that? Brainerd. They had a Trans Am race.
Yeah.
Up in Minnesota. That's a good. Oh, how about the Utah Motorsports Campus? Now that's one you don't see very often. That's not picturesque and beautiful.
Yeah, it's very there's my favorite word. It's picturesque and it's appealing in that way. I fear that one might be a little too long though.
It might be. Who knows? But
I would think
I'm saying if they're going to look at a road course, at least one road course for next season, it can't be a road course that NASCAR and IndyCar or F1 for that matter go to. So you can't go, or even really IMSA. I mean Lime Rock maybe.
Yeah, I was about to say Lime Rock might be kind of the exception to that.
I guess I'd be okay with Lime Rock, but I would still prefer it to be a road course that just does not get a lot of attention lately. Like I mentioned Heartland Park, I mentioned Brainerd. There's even Pittsburgh. There's a Pittsburgh Motorsports Complex.
Motorsports Complex.
That would be something, that these newer tracks or these tracks that just don't get a lot of attention. I think, but outside of that,
there's Atlanta Motorsports Park, and then there's the NCM Motorsports Park in Bowling Green.
Wow. Okay, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. If they're going to go to a road course, that's what I like to see. Outside of that, I think that they had great tracks. I think the first season of SRX had the perfect amount of tracks, and I don't really have any criticisms or critiques from the track selection. I don't think I would have picked any other 6. I think that was perfect.
Great 6.
It was the absolute most perfect. I felt like when you looked at that season, you got almost every track was different in some way. Eldora was a lot different from Knoxville. Stafford was a lot different from Slinger. Even Stafford's a lot different from Lucas Oil Raceway. Slinger's a lot different from Nashville.
Yep.
And I really liked that. I liked that kind of variety. So I guess if they were going to bring in new tracks, they would have to keep them in that same vein. You can't go to a track that races similar to another track. You have to go, to if you can find a quarter mile, you should go to a quarter mile. I'm even suggesting, I like Lucas Oil Raceway. I loved Lucas Oil Raceway. I'd love to see them come back to that. But Winchester is also acceptable, as is Salem. Personally, I'd like to see Winchester instead, but you don't have to go to Winchester. You could stay at Lucas Oil Raceway. That's fine too. I'm just throwing it out there, just because. Josh, you and I went to Winchester. It's so cool up there, man.
Great track. It's
a great track. It has great racing, beautiful seats. It's like some of the best hot dogs in the Midwest, in my opinion. I love going there. But that's what I'd like to see. I guess is a little bit of that same. So if they're going to add tracks, like say they expand the schedule next year, I'd like to see them stay unique, the tracks stay unique and different from one another. As different as possible. You can't go to another flat oval because you've got Lucas Oil Raceway and you've got Stafford. You've got the high banked ones in Nashville and Slinger, so you don't really want to go. You want to try and find something that's almost in the middle or even a shorter track than that. You try and find a track shorter than Slinger. I don't know. If that's even possible. If you can even fit the cars on there. Something crazy like that. That's really what I'm thinking for. Outside of that, though, really, I wouldn't change anything about SRX. I have nothing to change. I have nothing. I mean, if they put on the next season and it's exactly like the season we just saw, I don't care. I'll watch a rerun of it. I don't care. I mean, I had absolutely no problem. I mean, even the race at Nashville was really good because Nashville has those high banks and they're really fun. And those cars were flat flying around there, just like they were flat flying around Slinger.
Yeah.
I mean, man, I would hope Nashville and Slinger come back at least. And of course, Lucas Oil Raceway because I'm biased. But yeah, that's my hopes is SRX just kind of stays the same for next year. I don't know. What about you, Josh?
Well, it's hard to go against that. I love the season. My gosh, I think they nailed it. I agree. They had 6 really good races. They learned. I like that they were willing to adapt and change and grow and not say, here's the rule book, race 1. This is how we're going to do it through all 6 races, or this is how the real rule book we adopted. We're not going to change it at all. No, they kind of tweaked something, especially this first couple weeks. Each time they went to the track, and I think that's important. And especially you can do that when you're fan centric, and you're trying to made for television, kind of in a way. You're made to get this thing in 2 hours, and I appreciated that for this series. And this, did anyone watch this and get introduced to motorsports? I think that's a great way. For 22, I want to see more of that. I want to see, okay, how can we adapt? But I also want to say, okay, let's find a groove. Let's find a groove. Let's not just keep changing things for the sake of changing things. I like to see go to 8 races myself, but I'm gonna say I think we need just move it around a little bit. I think you need to find that those 2 or 3 races that, like, okay, if we're going to do this long term, and if I'm going to go planning 10 years ahead, these are the 3 races we're going to every year because they are marquee races. And to me, I think Eldora is going to be one of them. I think Nashville should be one of them because I think they're seeing that city is just grasping anything. All right, so don't leave Nashville. But what's that third one? Is it Slinger? Is it Lucas Oil? I don't know.
Slinger up there. Slinger was awesome, man.
And I would say too, and I hate to go against Lucas Oil. Maybe that's a track they visit every other year type of thing because I think it's a great track. I think it put on its own unique show.
They could alternate it with Salem and Winchester or something.
Yeah, I would say also another thing was going to do new markets because this was very Midwest centric. When you look at the 6 races, you had Stafford, and then the other 5 were 4 of them were in the Midwest, and one was in like the middle, whatever we want to say Tennessee is.
I count Tennessee as the Midwest.
It's very borderline between Southeast and Midwest, isn't it?
It is. It is. I think northern Tennessee up near Nashville is more Midwest, and then southern Tennessee is more Southeast.
I would like to see them go out west. We mentioned Willow Springs as if they're going to go road course racing. I think it's a great place to go. You kind of check that box off for the West Coast. But is Irwindale a potential track? Can they go there? Kern County, 5 Flags in Florida.
I'd actually prefer Kern County over Irwindale, and not because Irwindale's a bad track at any means, but just like I said, keeping that variety. I think I think Irwindale, you get more of a similar sense to like Stafford or Lucas Oil Raceway.
If you're not going to Stafford or Lucas Oil,
right? I know, but I'm saying but I think I would prefer to see Kern County because Kern County is just more unique, more different than whatever they raced on.
It is a very unique track. The truck should be going there, if you ask me. Again, no one did, but I'm going to say it. Evergreen up in Washington. There's so many tracks.
Oh my God! Ignoring the Pac Northwest is the worst thing motorsports has ever done.
Yes, and then you got a couple tracks in the Northeast still. You got other tracks in the Midwest as well. So I would say if you're going to go, say they go to 8 races, you need to pick 3 tracks you went to this year that you're like, okay, you're returning. The other 3, we're not tossing you to the side, but we might come back to you next year or year 3 or year 4. I like to see them go to Port Royal, a dirt track, instead of Knoxville. I know Knoxville's big, it's kind of the sprint car capital. I get that, but I don't want to see them going to the same 2 dirt tracks every year. And Tony Stewart's going to be biased to Eldora. He owns the track, for crying out loud. But again, to wrap up, I enjoyed the season very well. I enjoy the racing. I hope we get to see Mark Webber next year or another former F1 driver. I think that'd be kind of an important inclusion. And also maybe an extra car or 2 or 3 in the field if you can get enough full-time drivers. I don't want to see like, crap, we already got 10 full-time drivers. We got the local and then the ringer. But I got these 3 other guys who are interested in doing it full time. I would hate to see them turn away people for that. Just a couple of cars to add a little excitement. I don't know if every single guy is going to return next year. I doubt they do. I
don't see why Marco or Kanan or Elio or Stewart wouldn't. I think most great. Of them will. I'll be interested to see if Willie T. Ribbs comes back because, like I said, I'm pretty sure most of those fun yellows were just to keep him from going a lap down.
I would be now. One of these names are going to drop might disappoint people, but yeah, I'd be shocked if Willie T. Ribbs comes back, and I'd be shocked if Bill Elliott comes back.
It's not. Look, Bill Elliott. We have barely talked about this race. Bill Elliott did drive a great race, but the thing was like, this is the thing that always made me want. This was the big asterisk that whole race was. Is this Bill, or did they give him a little bit better car? Just as saying, hey, sorry for the last 5 weeks. Here's a car with 10 extra horsepower. See what you could do with it.
But you know what? It's for the fans.
It is for the fans. So if that's the case, nobody's going to complain. Nobody's going to be upset. Him and Chase were 1-2 for how much of the race? Like most of it.
Yeah, it's not like Bill was slow in any of the other races per se.
His car was messed up.
He had an issue. He just had an issue that popped up. But yeah, Rob, I think we should probably move on here. SRX, great season, great year. We're looking forward to hopefully...
because this next topic we need to talk about.
Yeah. Let's just dive right into this. Formula One, Silverstone, sprint qualifying winner, Max Verstappen. Heck of a first lap race there.
Let's talk about sprint qualifying before we get into this. What did you think about it? You did dead air. Come on.
I liked it, actually. I liked it. I have to agree with Toto, though. They need to keep it to races that are important to the schedule. This isn't something we should be doing every week.
I agree with that. This should be a special thing because I actually enjoy it. I thought it was cool. I'm glad that you liked it.
I liked it a lot.
I was gonna say I liked it regardless, but I feel like there's a lot of people who are kind of like they don't really want to admit that they liked it, but I
exactly think. I think there's just so many people like this. It was a good little show. Yeah. It was a 17-lap show that, was there some point? I love how the broadcast team were like, screw it, we're calling it a race. Because it is a race. It is a race.
It's not paying points, but it is a race.
It paid a total of 6 points. To the winner got 3, second got 2, third got 1. But is a heat race in America not a race? It's a race. It's a race.
F2 had sprint races. Yeah. Those count. I mean, you don't disregard the 2 sprint races and only count the feature race. You count both the sprint races.
You count them all. I enjoyed it. But I agree. Going to what Toto said, Toto Wolff, Mercedes team manager or team principal. I would say keep this to 5 to 8 races at most.
Five is the most they need to go. I don't think it needs to go any more. I 5.
think if you go to 8 for commercial purposes, for posterity, that kind of stuff. But the one, what word he said, Grand Slam, I think was the word he used, or the phrase he used to describe the certain races. Don't do this at Monaco. That would be
don't do it at
Monaco. That's the one marquee race you don't do it at. But do it at Italy, British Grand Prix.
Yeah, Monza would be good. Monza would be perfect for this.
Why we aren't going to Germany every year is beyond me. But you do it in Germany. You do it at the big races.
Yeah.
The historical.
I wish it was at the French Grand Prix instead. I think that would have made the French Grand Prix a lot more interesting.
That would have made the French Grand Prix a little bit more again, an important Grand Prix. You're not going to do this in Singapore. No offense to Singapore, but you're not going to do it in Singapore because one, it's a horrible track, and two, it's not a historic Grand Prix. You maybe do this in Canada for one North American race. If you don't do
Make Spain better.
We just need
because I'm going to talk about this for a minute because I actually do think that those sprint races helped enhance the quality of the race, and I'm going to tell you why. Is because I think you had someone mentioned it on Twitter, and it was a very good point. With the sprint race, you actually have less time in the car, less time to qualify, less time to get the car set up to be perfect. But usually by the time you qualify, you've had 3 full hour and a half practice sessions where you could basically get the car to be completely perfect. This way, a lot of the drivers I felt like were going into that sprint race with cars that probably didn't have the perfect balance yet. They probably hadn't dialed in that balance just perfectly, or there was just one thing that was off. And I think that mixed up the race because you had George Russell up in there. George Russell was running up in what would have been point scoring positions if that had been a Grand Prix race.
Yeah, that's the sad part.
But I'm saying, in addition to that, but I'm just saying, you look at that, and I think it actually enhanced the Grand Prix. I'm not saying that, we should do away with 3 practice sessions and qualify. I actually would prefer that. I like having full practice sessions, like full 3 sessions and qualifying. I like that. But during the sprint race format, I actually would prefer, have an hour practice session and then a half-hour warm-up session and then go for the sprint, and then qualify. Then do the sprint race qualifying. And then I would prefer, and then qualify for the sprint race and then go have your sprint race. I actually think that would be more entertaining, like they had, than not doing it differently. So I actually liked the way it was set up. I actually liked the way the races were. I actually enjoyed the sprint race because it was short too. It was like
half an hour.
It was a half-hour race, and I actually like that because when I watch Formula 3, Formula 2, and stuff, I actually kind of like how the races are 20 laps. The sprint race was shorter than the F2 sprint race. So that the sprint race in Formula 1 was 17 laps. A sprint race for F2 was 21.
Okay.
So, that was actually shorter, which was actually kind of neat. I actually didn't hate that. It was it was done in a flash, but it had all the intensity and drama that you would get in an F2 sprint race almost. And I really enjoyed that. And plus, you were coming off the heels of a F2 race to begin with, which was nice. So, but yeah, no, I actually really liked that. But then we should probably shift now here into the race itself, because that first lap, I woke up. I set an alarm because I went to bed late. I'll talk about this later, but I went to bed late after the Supercars race, and so I was gonna get up early to watch F2. But I just couldn't get up, and so I ended up sleeping in. And I got up in time to watch the F1 race. So I'm sitting here, and I'm basically fresh. I'm fresh in the morning. I'm sitting there. I'm having my bowl of tricks, and I'm getting excited for this, and I take the green flag. The lights go out, and I'm for the moment. I'm like, I can't eat. I gotta put this down. I'm stressed from the moment they started that race because I'm just like, man, this is gonna get crazy. This is gonna be crazy. I just felt it was gonna get crazy because the way how Hamilton was being so aggressive on that start, and it was from the moment those lights went out, I was like, dude, Hamilton is on a mission. Verstappen was doing whatever he wanted to do, but it felt like Hamilton was just on this mission. He was like, I have to take the lead at the end of this lap, otherwise my whole race is gonna be compromised. He was just desperate for this. So what ends up happening? Okay, so they go, they go back down the old pit lane straight into Cop's corner.
Correct. And
they collide. And Verstappen goes off, crashes. Charles Leclerc takes the lead. Hamilton, does he have damage? Well, a little bit, not much.
Yeah, wheel well damage.
Yeah, whatever. Well, if they had to throw the red flag, they said that Hamilton would have had to retire because they wouldn't have been able to fix that in that time. They would have had to retire the car. So Hamilton basically, his entire race got saved by that red flag.
Yeah.
He still had to serve the time penalty later, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. But so he crashes, and I looked at that, and everybody immediately on Twitter was like, "Oh, Hamilton, how dare you? How could you do this? How could you do this? Hamilton's at fault. No, Verstappen's at fault. Who's at fault?" And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this, and the first replay I said, I was like, "That's a racing incident." I was like, first replay I said, "That's a racing incident, dude." You can't blame anybody for that. You cannot blame Verstappen. You cannot blame Hamilton. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why you can't blame either of them, Josh, and our listeners. And I'm going on a rant here for a minute, so just sit tight. I'll tell you why you can't blame either of them. Because on the first lap of a Formula One race, how important is that first lap? 90% of the positions that you make up in that race are going to be gained or lost on the start of the race. So you have to be as aggressive as physically possible on the start of any standing start. This is true for any race with a standing start. You have to be as aggressive as physically possible without overdriving the car while still on, in some series, cold tires. F1 has tire warmers, not a big deal here. But point is, you have to do it on, in some cases also, well, maybe low tire pressures. Tire pressures aren't up to speed yet. Cars will spark a lot on the start of the race. So tire pressures aren't up. You still have to be at your absolute best. So what did I see there? I saw Verstappen blocking his heart out, but racing him clean. I saw Hamilton fighting his hardest, but racing him clean. And they went into a corner that's notoriously tight, that's notoriously fast, that's notoriously tricky. I mean, in some cases, you are taking Copse Corner full throttle, okay? This is not the Copse Corner where you had to let off the gas and you could take it, half throttle or let off the gas for it and then go through it and then gas it for maggots and Beckett's. This is not that Copse Corner. I mean, this Copse Corner is going to set, literally, you have to nail Copse Corner in order to set up maggots and Beckett's perfectly. Okay. And if you do not get through Copse Corner perfectly, you're not going to set up maggots and Beckett's perfectly. And if you don't set up maggots and Beckett's perfectly, you can lose a hell of a lot of time and get passed on the Wellington Straight in the DRS zone into Stowe Corner. So, when I say that, when you look at all those things that you have to do in an F1 car, Verstappen, and they showed the replay, Karun showed it too. Verstappen turned into Copse Corner, saw Hamilton was there, gave Hamilton room. Hamilton was there on the inside. Hamilton, did he have the corner? Well, he kind of did, yes and no. He kind of had the corner, but he also didn't. He had the apex of the corner. That doesn't necessarily mean he had the full corner. He had the apex, which when you're making an overtaking maneuver is very key. The thing here that's different, and this is why I think Hamilton got the time penalty, even though I don't think he deserved it, is because Verstappen gave him room and Hamilton still ran into him. I think if you would have seen Verstappen turn down onto Hamilton, I don't think they would have given a penalty to either driver. But I think because the race control noticed Verstappen, as soon as he saw Hamilton there, he gave him room. He turned the wheel back to the left and then turned it back to the right, almost to adjust his corner, essentially adjust his cornering, so that he wouldn't run into Lewis.
Yep.
And when he ended up running into Lewis anyway, then you kind of think, okay, well, this is on Lewis. So when you look at that too, you have to understand that the car on the outside has the position as well. And I understand, and this is Copse Corner. Okay, Copse is again a very, very fast and tricky corner, and I just have to wonder if Hamilton made the right decision. I understand he was trying to be aggressive, but I feel like he would have had a much better chance at passing Verstappen had he nailed Copse Corner, nailed Maggots and Beckett's, and then gotten him on the Wellington Straight into Stowe. Hanger Straight onto Stowe. Sorry, I get those two mixed up. I think that would have been smarter. But again, it's the first lap, and you don't know what Verstappen's going to do. You kind of have to be as aggressive as possible. So that's why I say racing incident. If this happened on lap 23, it's Hamilton's fault altogether. Oh, hell yeah. Give him more than a 10-second time penalty for that. But it's on the first lap. You're going for it all. You have to be aggressive. I think it's a racing incident. I think the penalty wasn't deserved, but I can't really argue it. That's my take. I don't think he deserved it, but I'm not going to say it was a bad penalty. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm not making sense there.
I get what you're saying. I just disagree, I guess.
Okay, well, I want to hear your opinion now because I've talked about mine too long. What's your feeling on this?
Well, you just said it right here. One of the points that I thought about, you just said if it's lap 23, yeah, it's a penalty all day long. Lap 1, it's not. I don't think you should police lap one different from the last lap. It's like when you've covered a high school basketball game.
Oh, I've covered a lot.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna let them play a little bit harder in the last 2 minutes. No, if it's a foul in the first minute of the first quarter, it's a foul in the last minute of the last quarter. It's a foul. Do not change how you officiate this game, because then you just open yourself up to, questionable. Okay, well, did we lose this game because the ref called it differently, or did we lose this game because we couldn't play defense? Right? We couldn't keep a guy in front of you. Well, here, I get what you're saying. I get what a lot of people are saying. With the corner wheel, I can't disagree with that. But the angle in the line that Hamilton was at, he's a 7-time champion. He knew the only way he was getting through that corner was if Verstappen backed out and gave him it, and sort of did an over under on him into
You're not going to make a pass on the Maggots and Beckett's. I think I know where you're going with this, and I think you're absolutely right. Hamilton should have been smarter and let Verstappen go, and then tried to get him down the hangar straight. That's what I would have preferred.
Well,
that's what he should have done, but he didn't.
That's what he should have done, but he should have also lived to fight another day. All right, and he should have known. Okay, we got. If you're not going to beat him on the start, we got to outsmart him in strategy, and that's sort of been a role reversal, right? For the past few years, it's been, if you're going to beat Mercedes, you got to outbeat him on strategy in pit stops. Well, now that's Mercedes' game right now, and he has to know that this aggressiveness that Verstappen has, he's driving with the same aggression he's had, but now it's a smartness. It's not aggressive, it's just smart. He's just driving smart. He's got these years under his belt. He's learned countless lessons, and he's got a reliable engine. He's going for everything. And yeah, Verstappen was racing aggressive but clean, and up until that corner, I'm not going to call it a dirty move by Hamilton by any means, but the racing had been clean by both parties. I agree with the time penalty. I can't disagree with it. I'm like, he's going to get time penalty, and he deserves it, because that was a decision he should not have made. A 7-time champion, a nearly 100 Grand Prix winner, should not have made, and he knew he wasn't going to make that corner. So to me, I don't think Helmut Marko can say he should be suspended for one race all he wants. He's wrong on that. That's just
that's going a bit too far.
That's just in the moment. Can't talk. Can't hold your.
I mean, I understand why Red Bull was so heated, because look, listen. Red Bull had an awful. They went from having the best season up until this point since the Vettel years, basically, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly they scored no points.
Yeah, I mean, and you had
Perez already had a problem. Perez had a problem in the sprint qualifying and in the sprint race, so he had to start last, and he just never was able to recover.
He started from pit lane, didn't he?
So yeah, you're at pit lane. So he was never able to recover, and then Verstappen was out on the first lap. So I mean, there was nothing. Red Bull just took a huge L here, and
huge L.
I know, and I understand that Christian Horner and Helmut Marko are upset about it. I understand they would be upset about it. But
and I think I don't know. My thing is, one thing I came to my mind, because I didn't watch this race live, I was at work, but when I watched the beginning of it this morning, I'm thinking, is there not enough trust? Is there not enough confidence in the stewards and in the race director? And of course, he has to make the decision on Michael Massey. You can say how bad he is, but he doesn't make the penalty decisions. But is there not enough confidence in the stewards, or to get things right, to do justice? There's not like Max Verstappen tweeted, the punishment doesn't fit the crime, and you shouldn't worry about the consequences. And I think that's a good thing. They don't take the consequences. Okay, Max is going to lose a big points lead here. He's going to have 8 points. You can't take that into effect. You have to look at the situation like, okay, driver A hit driver B. Driver B hit driver A. Whatever happened in in whatever instance it is, that's how you got to look at it. And I think they got it right. I don't think there wasn't enough evidence to do a 10-second stop and go penalty, but I definitely think it warranted more than a 5-second penalty. And
want to say one thing about this too before we move on, because
Okay.
this is, I mean, the F1 race in general.
Yeah.
I mean, Hamilton had a great comeback. I mean, he passed Leclerc with a couple of laps to go, and I didn't think he was going to do it, and he ended up doing it, and that really bummed me out because I was like, man, this is going to be great for Ferrari. This is going to be great for Leclerc. You know, they've needed this. They've struggled most of the season. You know, they've struggled a lot of last season. You know, this is going to be great for them. And then now Hamilton's like, hey, I'm still here, and I can pass clean when I want to. But anyway. The one thing I do want to say though is this is what I find out about this after the fact. This is a kind of crap that just blows my mind. I don't understand this.
I think I know you're going with this.
Do you know you've heard about this then, right? The apparent racist abuse Hamilton has faced online. Okay, this is what I want to know. This is what I want to know first and foremost, because apparently this is a big problem in England and most of the world, like most of Europe and most of the world. Like I understand it's a big problem here in America as well.
It's a big problem everywhere. I mean, everyone likes to just say it's an American problem. It's not. It's a world problem.
I mean, but I hear it so often out of Great Britain, especially in soccer. You know, I like to watch English soccer. I'm a big Tottenham fan, and there's a lot of players that I like, right? And I just get so disgusted when I hear that, you know, a certain soccer player was a victim of racist abuse by fans. And I sit here and I think to myself, I say, why would you do that to somebody who is out here trying to entertain you? Why would you do that to somebody who's worked their entire life to get this point, and they make one mistake, and all of a sudden that doesn't give you the right to say this kind of crap towards it. Well, first of all, I get Hamilton has probably felt this most of his life. I've seen it. You know, we've all, I think for a lot of people who've been around F1 for as long as we have, we've seen how much kind of crap Hamilton has gotten in the past. But this is not worthy of that level of crap. You would not give this kind of crap to any other driver if they did this.
It's never appropriate at any time.
No, it's not. But I'm saying these same people would not, if Kimi Räikkönen is making this move and screws up and wrecks Max Verstappen, I don't think people say these things about Kimi Räikkönen.
No.
And that's something, you know, and I'm just dropping a name there, and it's not because Räikkönen's white and Finnish and Hamilton's black and British. It doesn't matter. It's simply because these people need to understand that these drivers are just that. They're drivers. You're asking them to make split-second decisions in less than a second, and Hamilton made the wrong split-second decision in less than a second, and he doesn't deserve your racist abuse and the BS that he's gotten his entire life because of that. Oh, I'm sorry Verstappen crashed. Oh, I'm sorry. But the race was still good. The race was still good. I'm sorry. And you know what's going to happen in Hungary? Verstappen's going to go back that thing on the pole, I bet you, and he's going to go right back to his old winning ways. And everybody's going to say, oh, everybody's going to forget about it. But no, these people out there, they take time out of their day to call somebody, not to their face, but in the comment section of their Instagram page, on their Twitter profile, on their own personal Twitter profiles, for crying out loud.
Keyboard warriors. These
horrible things. And they wouldn't dare say it to Hamilton's face. And it just makes me, this is more for everybody. This is more just a general thing. If you wouldn't say it to somebody's face, don't say it on the internet. Okay? And I don't care if you think you're safe from this. We've seen with TikTok, they can find you and they will cancel you. Okay? Look, let's be honest. I'm not endorsing cancel culture here, but I'm just saying if you get canceled, for abusing Hamilton online, you really have nobody but to blame but yourself here. Okay? So that's something I want to say. This was not at all indicative of any. Nothing is, but especially not something like this. This was a racing incident. I called it a racing incident earlier. Everybody with a brain calls it yeah, Hamilton's at fault, but you can have faults in racing incidents.
No one's perfect.
No one's perfect. Look,
that includes athletes.
Racing incidents can happen where one driver is at fault. If a driver gets loose off the corner and spins and takes out another driver, that's not. It's a racing incident, but that person is still at fault for spinning. Yeah. You know, they still had driver error. You know, or let's say more likely. A driver goes off track and he collides with another driver. You say that's a racing incident, even though it's driver error that caused that guy to go off track. You're not going to penalize both cars. You're going to call that, okay, racing incident and put it in the back of your head. You're going to file it in the back of the head. Nobody's going to care. This is same. This isn't like Hamilton driver error, something like that. This is Hamilton made the wrong decision in the split second, in the heat of the moment. And the fact of the matter is, he doesn't deserve he doesn't deserve abuse for that. I mean, if Hamilton had gone out there and flipped off Verstappen and told him to suck it while he was going by, then maybe I could see calling him a butthole. But nothing further than that, personally. Yeah, and Hamilton didn't do that. So, I just, that just blows my mind. The fact that we are in 2021 and we have all these big racing teams and have to have all these drivers come out and condemn racist abuse of Hamilton online. I just blows my mind that we're not past this yet. We're not past. Hamilton has been racing in F1 since 2007, and you guys can't get over the fact that his skin color for some reason. It blows my mind. You can't acknowledge his 7 championships. You're just focused on his skin color. That's stupid. I'm sorry, that's stupid. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's talk about the Cup Series here. Well, the 2 big points here are, to me, 3. One, he didn't have any PJ1 applied, which to me was a good thing. 2, they started the race and it rained 6 laps later. And then you had Aric Almirola win from 27th in points. Rob, where do you want to start?
All right, so first of all, this was a great race. New Hampshire put on a great race. No PJ1 definitely helped it. 750 horsepower package definitely helped it. Small blade definitely helped it. The only problems were the shenanigans at the start where we decided to throw the green flag when it was still raining in turns 1 and 2. Jim Utter tweeted that out. I don't know. I'm sure he's blocked.
It was raining on the TV screen. You could tell it was raining.
Right. I'm sure Jim Utter has blocked most people, so that's why he hasn't blocked me, thank goodness. I hope he never does. Because not because I like him or know him personally, but just because he's got good information that puts out. But my point is, like, he tweeted out, he's like, that the NASCAR tower was reporting rain in turns 1 and 2, and they still gave him the one to go at the line. Well, first of all, that's stupid, and that makes you really question who's upstairs running NASCAR's decisions, because then you get, less than 10 laps in, and all the leaders go into turn 1 and wipe out. And you're just like, excuse me, did we go back in time 20 years to the All-Star race?
It looked like Charlotte last year in
or someone said Texas too. They had a problem with this at Texas too.
Yeah.
But that's just stupid. So Kyle Busch should be mad. Kyle Busch should be the most mad person on the face of the planet. I don't know what he'd do about it, but he should be mad. And then the second thing I'm going to say is I want to say this to Aric Almirola. Like, I don't want to take anything away from Almirola, okay? Winning a race is tough. It's not easy to do, especially with how competitive NASCAR is. So I don't want to take anything away from Almirola's accomplishment here when I say this. Because Almirola drove a great race. I mean, he was up front all day. He had some good pit strategy. He had a fast car that really showed up when it needed to show up. And he drove a smart, sensible race, and he's been doing that most of the season. I'm going to say biases aside, I've never personally been a fan of Almirola. I don't really necessarily think he's that great, but I'm not going to take anything away from this win. I think this was a well-deserved win. This was something that he needed. This was something that Stewart-Haas needed, because Stewart-Haas has not won a race all season. This was their first victory, which is crazy considering the fact that you would have thought that Kevin Harvick would have had a victory by now.
Right.
But anyway, I think the problem with this is just how much this affected the playoffs. We now have Denny Hamlin, and now if Denny Hamlin wins the regular season championship, he's going to be in the playoffs no matter what. But he is right now the outright points leader. He is the outright points leader. Denny Hamlin has amassed more points than anybody else in the Cup Series right now. And he's sitting 13th. What is it? 13th or 14th in points.
He is in a reset right now. He's 14th.
He is 14th.
But that's just on the win side. If he gets
yes, but that's what I'm talking about. 14th in the playoff side. That is specifically what I'm talking about. So Denny Hamlin is seeded despite leading the regular season and could potentially and very well will be the regular season champion.
He would be seated a little bit higher because there's guys in front of him who have fewer playoff points. But no,
okay, again, and who are those two guys? I wonder who.
He would probably be ahead of
McDowell and Almirola.
He might be seated higher,
and probably Bell too. But Bell had a really good race this week, so I don't want to.
He might be around 7th or 8th in a reset and the seating, maybe 7th. Or
okay,
6th,
so
something like that.
My point is, people have a lot of problems with the point standings, point system, the playoff system.
Okay.
This is a big problem to me. I really think they need to look at that rule with the top 30 in points. If you're in the top 30 in points, you get in with a win. I think they need to look at this. Because this is getting... Because, let's be honest. If you have a surprise winner at Daytona, okay? If you have a surprise winner at Daytona that's below 20th in the points, everything blows up. Everything blows up. You have entire seasons killed. And this is something that can happen. And I understand you're smiling. You're smiling like, oh, but this is cool. This is nice. This is what we want.
I'll say my piece here in a second.
Okay, but this is stupid. I'm sorry. Aric Almirola and Michael McDowell, for that matter, despite their 2 wins, which again, not taking anything away from their 2 wins, they were hard-earned, well-deserved wins. But winning a race is not indicative of running for a championship at the end of the season. If you're not even competitive in 95% of the races, but are competitive in 5% and win, that is not indicative of you being able to go. Because, look, I mean, I understand, that's a wild card. If NASCAR was to do wild cards again like they did in 2013 or whatever, that's fine. Almirola and McDowell would be great wild cards to throw in there. But we're not doing it that way. And we're not going to return to that. We have this playoff grid where you win and you're in. And now you're punishing drivers who are consistent and scoring playoff points. Might not be scoring wins. You're emphasizing wins a lot. And I understand that's what NASCAR wants to do. NASCAR wants to emphasize wins. They want to make winning more important, and that's great. But also, you can't have a playoff system where the bottom 4 are guaranteed out every single year. Because this is what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen? We're going to get to Daytona. We're going to have McDowell and Almirola. And those guys are going to be locked in at, say, 13 seed, 12 seed, right? Give or take. If the points were to end right now, they'd be 12 and 13 seeds.
I'll pull up NASCAR.com while you're going at this.
Does anybody in their right mind have those guys advancing past the first round? Nobody does. The chances, based on their average finish throughout the whole season, the chances of them advancing after 3 races in the chase are very slim. It's almost as if allowing them into the playoffs is pointless and taking away positions from other drivers who probably would finish better than them. And I'm talking about drivers that are now on the fringe. Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick. I'm talking about Bubba Wallace. I'm talking about Matt DiBenedetto. Guys that are on the fringe of making the playoffs that have been pretty average, pretty good. Top 20s here and there. Consistently in the top 15. Consistently in the top 20. Maybe a top 10 here and there. Not great, but definitely better than whatever Almirola and McDowell are running, which is usually 20th or worse. Maybe even 25th, 30th, somewhere around there. And that's not because they're bad drivers. They're just having bad seasons. And you shouldn't be rewarded for a bad season just because you won a race and turned it around. And I just think that NASCAR needs to look at this and reevaluate and maybe raise that top 30 requirement up a little bit. Maybe make it top 25. Maybe make that playoff grid just a little bit more emphasizing. Is someone like McDowell, this could create drama as well and a storyline. Because, if that were the case, you would be watching, okay, well, where's McDowell's car and owner points right now? Oh, well, he's fallen down a little bit. He could lose his playoff eligibility if he doesn't pick it up. That's a storyline. And that's something, that's something that can happen. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying NASCAR's going to do that. That could probably muddy some waters. People probably going to look at that and say, that's crazy, that's stupid. You can't take somebody's playoff contention away. Well, you can in every other sport. Guys can get into the playoffs and then have bad stretches and lose the playoffs. I mean, it's happened before. Baseball, it happens in baseball. It happens in basketball. It happens in hockey. Teams are at the top of the standings, and then they have a bad stretch of games, and then the next thing you know, they're third, fourth in the seeding. It happens. You have to reward people who are consistently good all season. You can't reward McDowell and Almirola for winning their one race and then putzing around in 30th the rest of the season. I don't want to take away anything from those two guys' accomplishments. Almirola drove a great, one hell of a race on Sunday. He deserved that win, absolutely. But does he deserve to be in the playoffs? I don't think so. Josh, what's your response to this or your feelings on this?
Well, I'll just say a few things here. One, I think you're harsh on McDowell. He's got an 18.2 average finish. Denny Hamlin would be seated fourth if the playoffs began today with 20 playoff points behind Larson, Truex, and Busch. I kind of always thought top 30 was a little low or a little too wide open. I definitely think it should be top 25. Putting the business cap on, this probably comes down to you wanted to have as many sponsors able to make the playoffs as possible. The chances of someone like this, like Almirola, who is struggling so hard and is sitting 27th in points, winning a race outside of the 3 plate races or super speedway races that take place in the regular season are pretty low. Almirola and his team hit it this weekend, and they hit it. They hit it good. Good for them. Congratulations. That I wrote it down here. I kind of just posed a question. Did Almirola sense a possible threat from Matt DiBenedetto moving to there? I don't know. He's obviously got the Smithfield sponsorship.
I want to say one thing about that. I don't think that's going to happen because the 10 car, to my knowledge, only exists if a driver is bringing sponsorship to it. If nobody's bringing sponsorship to that 10 car, it shuts down. So if DiBenedetto is being linked with there, then he must have some kind of sponsor that I didn't know about because I just ripped him in the first segment for not doing any work on a sponsor. So I really am having a hard time believing that he'd be linked to that 10 car.
I didn't, they're spitballing, okay? Just, did he sense a threat that this guy's like, okay, well, could I lose my Smithfield sponsorship to a guy who's got a larger following? That type of thing. Is that possible? I'm just spitballing here. Does he sense a threat from someone else? Does he sense a threat from Riley Herbst? I'm just saying. You
didn't really say that to me. You didn't really.
I did. I'm just saying. I'm trying to make sense because why did you have all this news this week and then all of a sudden Aric Almirola turns it up here? Just trying to help people understand.
Yeah, just a great race. I think they just got lucky. Let's be honest. This is not to say. I want to reemphasize this. Almirola, any other year prior to this one, I would argue deserves the playoff spot. But this year has not been a good year for him. I'm not saying that this. I'm not saying that this
Ford camp has struggled.
Yeah, I'm not saying that this win is any less legitimate. This is a great win. This is huge. He should use this to build off of this and try and end the regular season on a high note. But that doesn't mean that him doing great in the next stretch of races throughout the last half of July and the month of August is indicative of playoff run when he wasn't having good finishes between February and June.
I understand. I think you gotta. You're looking at it from a sort of purist standpoint. One of the biggest flaws. Even
if NASCAR wants to compare itself to ball sports, this doesn't happen in any ball sport. You don't see a team be terrible for 3/4 of the season and then turn it up right before the playoffs and make the playoffs. They usually might have a shot at the wild card, but even then it's a very tough, tall task for them. There's a lot of ground that these teams would typically have to make up. So if you're comparing NASCAR to ball sports in this situation, even then it doesn't make sense that Almirola would be in the playoffs.
Well, here's the thing I don't do, and this is going to make people mad, or because I think a lot of people in this industry flip-flop on it. I don't compare it to ball, stick and ball.
No, I'm not saying you should. I don't think you should. I don't think you should. But when NASCAR made this playoff system, it was to compare it to ball sport. That's what Brian France's whole point was. I mean, we can argue that it's not that case now because Brian France isn't there anymore. But when Brian France came out and created the playoff grid system, it was specifically to appeal to ball sports fans. So he is specifically awarding these championships to the way that they are to appeal to stickhead ball sports fans. So if we are going to do it this way, we might as well still stay consistent. You know,
but we're not. That's my point. You have different stakeholders in this sport. Smithfield pays how much money to Stewart-Haas Racing each year? They want to have a shot at the playoffs. All right? And how do you open that up? You got to have a top 30. You can't open up the top 36 because then you can have teams who, Rob, we know, just don't deserve to be there based off of just speed, okay? Well, obviously he has shown glimpses of brilliance this year, all right? He's had a couple good races. Things just haven't gone his way, and he's had some poor finishes. This race hit it, and this rewards that money that Smithfield's and whoever else is back in the 10 car to get into the playoffs. You don't have that sponsorship. Miller Lite isn't upset that the Dallas Cowboys missed the playoffs this year, and that the whole playoff field is in the NFL is full of Bud Light teams. They're not upset about it. They made their money. That has nothing to do. They have no bearing on how good that team performs. Smithfield does. Now, I agree. I think it should be upped. I think it should be top 25. I think it should be top 25 since 2014 because I said top 30. That's a lot of cars that are eligible. So you're basically saying, I mean, there's only going to be 16, so you're going to have 20 cars miss the playoffs no matter what. Okay? You're going to have 20 cars miss the playoffs no matter what. But the eligibility, if you get a win, should be upped. I agree with that completely. But the way it is and the way it stands, I will defend it. In that, yeah.
And that's fine. I don't mind. I mean, look, it's a lot of my complaining, I guess, has not been to try and change things. I mean, the way things are. Me complaining on this podcast is not going to change anything. I am aware of that. I know that. I'm just simply suggesting and saying what I would prefer to see based upon what I think should be done. And this is what we do here. I give my opinion. I give my thoughts. I give my feelings. This is just how I feel. I didn't want to take anything away from Almirola. I just see a major flaw in this point system being revealed by Almirola being able to win a race and despite being 27th in points, make the playoffs. Okay. McDowell's average finish is probably better than Almirola's. Am I wrong?
Say what?
McDowell's average finish is probably much better than Almirola's.
Yeah, so I would say so. Let me double check. I mean, I know it is better.
If you could tell me that is accurate.
Almirola has a 21.8 average finish and an 18.2. Has an 18.2.
Okay, a 21.8 average finish. Do you think having an average finish of 21st, almost 22nd, should get you into the playoffs? Because that's not even a top 20. That's not even a top 20. You're not even averaging a top 20 every race. McDowell at least is. McDowell is at least averaging a top 20 every race. That I'll give him credit for. I know I'm being harsh on him, but I'll give him credit for that. That's good. If you can average above a top 20 every race and be more or less as forgettable as Michael McDowell is, good for him. But Almirola with a 21, almost 22 position average finish, that is not indicative of somebody who is going to be a contender in the playoffs. It just seems like it's wasting a spot for somebody else who could probably actually advance past the first round.
Then get a win. If Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon want to fight over this position, get a win. Get a win. If Denny Hamlin wants to
get a win. Yeah,
get a win. Winning cures this issue. If there are 17 winners, all right, which we have 13 winners right now. If there are 17 winners when we exit Daytona, Aric Almirola is going to be the one out. Most likely, he's going to be the one out. All right.
So all we have to do is hope that four different new drivers win, and hopefully they're at the bottom four of the cut line. Denny Hamlin, Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick, and
Kevin Harvick.
I don't know. Let's hope DiBenedetto gets the Wood Brothers that 100th victory.
And Kevin Harvick's out. All right.
Oh shoot! No, I forgot about Harvick. Harvick's got to win at some point.
So I mean, I just winning cures it. If you know the rules walking in. So Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick have had great seasons. They've
Dillon's had a really good season. I think a lot of people have been too hard on Austin Dillon.
Yeah, he's a good driver. The equipment has been off, but now there's all this new information sharing between Hendrick and RCR, and they're running really well. Tyler Reddick has improved. Win a race. That's my thing. If I'm Austin Dillon or Tyler Reddick, and I'm on the competition director, I'm going to say win a freaking race.
I mean, I get what you're saying. The competition is really high. We're talking about 13 different winners, which is insane. I never expected that.
It's happened before, actually.
But I didn't expect it to happen this year. I never would have pegged it at the start of the season. I wouldn't have pegged it. Now, by race 2, I probably would have expected that. But when the season started, I don't think I would have expected it.
I agree with that. We should probably move on here, Rob.
We should definitely move on.
This is going to be a late one. We got a weekend wrap up, so let's wrap it up. I know you want to share some stuff, but I
want to talk about supercars, but I'm going to get through as fast as I can. Okay, weekend wrap up. Aric Menard Series that was at Berlin. Daniel Dye in his second career start won that race. So that's huge for him. Absolutely huge. Unfortunately, most people probably weren't watching that. Number one, that was on MAV TV, and also at the same time as SRX. So let's be honest. What did you pick? You probably picked SRX, right? NASCAR Xfinity Series was in New Hampshire. Christopher Bell had a great race. That was a great race. Xfinity Master Race. I'm sorry. Xfinity is a Master Series. I'm sorry. Best series in NASCAR right now. IMSA was at Lime Rock. That actually aired after the
Xfinity race.
The Xfinity race. That was kind of neat. It was
Cup race. Actually, a Cup race. Sorry, my bad. Cup race.
No, it wasn't the Cup race. It was the Xfinity race because I watched Money in the Bank right after the Cup race, and I remember watching this. So
that's right. My bad.
GTLM was it was only GT cars. There was only GT cars here at Lime Rock and IMSA. No prototypes whatsoever. So in GTLM, Corvette Racing was a victor. Antonio Garcia, Jordan Taylor shared driving duties for that. And in GTD, Heart of Racing Team, Roman DeAngelis and Ross Gunn were the victors there. Supercars was in Townsville again, but this time it wasn't the Townsville 500. It was the Townsville Super Sprint. The WD-40 Townsville Super Sprint. Great event there. Race number 1 was won by Cameron Waters. Race 2 was Shane Van Gisbergen, and race 3, and one of the best races of the season was race 3. Shane Van Gisbergen and Cameron Waters went back and forth. We just had a great duel in the end of the race, but Cameron Waters bested Shane Van Gisbergen. We have a great points battle in supercars right now. I think 3rd through 5th or 6th in the standings are separated by a handful of points, which is outstanding. Really good battle. Seriously, I tell you guys every week on this podcast, if you want to watch supercars, if you hear me talking so much hype about it, it is $5 a month on YouTube. You can go to the Supercars page and subscribe to Superview on YouTube for $5 a month. You can watch every single race live and on demand on YouTube. So it's basically easy to cast, easy everything. No crazy players here that you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about doing anything. It's very easy. If you have a smart TV, you have a computer, you have a phone, a tablet, whatever, you can watch this right there on the YouTube app. So I highly recommend this. Supercars has been putting on some fantastic racing this season. So if you're in the U.S. and you want to start watching some, that's a good way to get your feet wet in that. Moving on to some open wheel stuff here. W Series was back in Silverstone. That was also on beIN Sports Extra. I was able to actually DVR that on Sling. Thank you, Sling, for being able to DVR these free channels that normally I don't think have DVR capabilities, but you do on Sling. So that was really cool. So I was actually able to watch that because I think it happened at 8 in the morning and I was tired from watching the Supercars race the night before. So I missed it, but I ended up watching it later on a replay, and Alice Powell was the victor. That was a very good race. Again, the W Series I'm very glad to be able to watch W Series because the racing's actually really good. And then Formula 2 was in Silverstone. Race number 1, Robert Schwartzman, who briefly took the points lead with a victory, and then promptly lost it as the weekend went on. Race number 2, Richard Verschoor. Now this Richard Verschoor had the greatest. He from reverse grid pole and took the victory. I mean, he started. God, he must have started the first sprint race back in like 16th or 17th. Came all the way through the field. Finished on reverse grid pole for the first race. So I think it was like 10th or 8th. I think it was 8th. And then started first in race 2 and was able to drive away to victory, hold off everybody, and win. Great victory there. That was MP Motorsports, I believe, their first win on the season, which is really good for them. And then race number 3 for Formula 2 was won by Guan Yu Zhao, who actually now retakes the points lead. He had lost it. He had lost it to Robert Schwartzman and Oscar Piastri. And actually, in the first race, he got spun on the first lap and DNF'd. So that hit him in the points, but that victory in the feature race really helped him. He regained the points lead. So now it's still Zhou, Piastri, and Schwartzman battling for the points lead in Formula 2 right now. So still a couple of races to go. So it'll be interesting to see what the points battle looks like. But Formula 2 definitely shaping up. Has some great races. Very excited. Outstanding performance. I'm going to start first and go ahead and give mine to Cameron Waters, first of all, because that was some of the best driving I've ever seen. Now, Shane Van Gisbergen is literally at the peak of his game right now. He is peaking at the right time. He is the leader in supercars. He has dominated the season basically all the way up to this point. And the only guy who's basically come anywhere near him all season that wasn't his teammate Whincup has been Cameron Waters. And the way he put this thing to him on that race 3 at Sunday, I mean, this is the thing that amazed me the most, is in race 2, SVG passes Waters, and basically he had a couple of ways to do that. And every single time in race 3 that SVG tried to pass Waters, Waters knew, almost as if a sixth sense, almost as if he had watched him in the first 2 races, he knew exactly where, he just knew where Shane Van Gisbergen was going to put his car, and he protected the line, blocked it. I think SVG got alongside him once on the front straightaway. And man, those two were going at it, and they were on fresh tires too, and they were going at it so hard. Will Davison came up, made it a 3-car battle for a little bit. Absolutely outstanding race. Got to give it to Cameron Waters this week. I mean, someone who just impressed me. I have never seen a driver impress me that much as Cameron Waters. Now, Chase Elliott impressed me a lot in the SRX race, and I said this on Twitter. I said, I don't think Cup is a very good measurement tool for driver skill. I think Xfinity is a much better way to measure skill, just because of the less downforce and the different aero regs. But definitely going out there in an SRX car and beating the field the way he did, I think that gives a lot more legitimacy to Chase Elliott's championship, and Chase Elliott's driving ability, at least in my eyes, because it shows that, he's in the Cup, and Cup kind of sucks in terms of driving because it's not skill, it's more momentum based and foot flat to the floor in most races. Not all races, obviously not the race in New Hampshire, but in most races, especially at mile and a halves. But that was just a solidifying moment for me, at least, Chase Elliott. But the real guy who just had a great race, I just was blown away, was Cameron Waters. So definitely, if you want to take a look at some of the highlights for supercars this weekend, I do highly recommend that, because Waters and Van Gisbergen put on one heck of a show. Josh, go ahead and tell us about your outstanding performance.
I want to give mine to Aric Almirola. He saw the light at the end of the tunnel to save his championship, to save his season, to I mentioned earlier, to save his partners, give them a shot. Yeah, and he took it. He had the grit to drive up there, pass multiple cars, retain the lead, get the lead again. He even lost it for a brief second there on that last stint, and got it back. I can't say much more than that. I mean, this is a guy who has lost his fair share of races on super speedway tracks in the last 2 seasons. So for him to finally get that win, it's his 3rd career win, get that win that's not on a super speedway, it's going to mean a lot to him. I also expect him to be a little more emotional after the race, but I think he's kind of in shock, just I think like a lot of us were.
I thought he showed a lot of emotion. He looked very happy. I saw him get out of there. It felt like he was chucking that monkey off his back, man. I mean, he was chucking that thing into the stratosphere.
I thought maybe more crying, a little more teary emotion, but oh well. Anyways, happy for him. Outstanding performance by him. Like I said, saw the light at the end of the tunnel, ran towards it, grit to get it done. All right, on to the upshift downshift segment. This is gonna be like lightning fast here. We're gonna try to do it lightning fast, anyways. Upshift, you agree. Downshift, you disagree. Shifting into neutral, just don't have enough information to make a decision. We just don't sometimes care about it. That's only happened a couple times, or we're sitting on that fence. So, first question here. Matt DiBenedetto is racing to the NASCAR Cup Series in 2022. Do you upshift or downshift, Rob?
I upshift. I think he is. I don't know where, but I think someone's going to take a chance on him. Someone has to. And if DiBenedetto's smart, he's working his tail off trying to get sponsorships together. So I do think he's in the Cup Series next year. It's just, I definitely know it's not going to be a good car. But, hey, you got to take the rides that you could get, and he's got to build his brand, and he's had a whole year to do that, and we'll see what he does. I think he's going to do it, but ultimately we'll see. I'm upshifting for now. Don't prove me wrong, Matty D. Don't prove me wrong.
I'm actually going to throw it into neutral because I feel like Matt DiBenedetto, he's got talent. I think he's got talent. I mean, we talk about, I think he can win races. If he's in the right car, you give him enough time. I really think if Ford was doing better this year, he would have competed for more top 2-3 finishes and wins. But I only see him going to one team, or I think he'll only go to one team, and I won't name drop that team here. But if this team opens up and gets rid of one of their drivers, I can see him going there. Other than that, he's not going to Rick Ware Racing. I know that. He's not going to go there. So I'm going into neutral because I just can't upshift. That's the only reason. I can't downshift either, so I got to go into neutral. The Camping World SRX series and a NASCAR series can share a racetrack on the same weekend in 2022. Do you upshift or downshift?
Absolutely not. I don't think this is a good idea. I downshift wholeheartedly. SRX and NASCAR need to be as separate as possible because right now, if you put SRX on the same track as NASCAR, I guarantee you those fans are not going to come back next year because they're going to compare the two. They're going to compare SRX to NASCAR, and they're going to be like, dang, that NASCAR race was really bad. And new car, next gen, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's not going to put on nearly, I really don't think right now it's going to put on nearly as good of a show as SRX can put on right now. I really think SRX needs to stay on short tracks and not go to any track that's raced on by NASCAR right now. I think they did a really good job of kind of avoiding that. I mean, I understand Truck Series goes to Knoxville, but I think for the most part they did a really good job of that, kind of keeping them separate, because I think you're going to kind of cannibalize the fan base by going to a NASCAR track, and I really don't think they want to do that, so I'm downshifting.
I downshift as well. I don't think it doesn't matter what NASCAR series it is. It's Cup, Xfinity, Truck. I don't think that would work. Both from
the Xfinity series would put on a better race, but nobody would care about the drivers. That's the problem. The problem with the Xfinity series is you don't have the Cup drivers in there anymore, so very few people really have nobody has the star power in Xfinity series right now. You don't have any like Xfinity monster. You don't have Sam Ard out there running. You don't have someone like that would command a following in the Xfinity series, and that's what I think would affect that. But I think if you had that star power and you put SRX and Xfinity on the same page, on the same track, I think that they could produce two very good races that would excite the fans. But the problem is you don't have that in the Xfinity series. NASCAR is developing it as a developmental series for young drivers, which I still think is a dumb idea. I think the Xfinity series should just be its own thing and not seen as quote unquote a development ladder. But I get why it is. But that's something what I think. I think that you could get that, but that's why you don't have that. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's all right. I just don't think it would work because they don't want to work together. I don't think they should. I think they just should be different. I think the SRX should be the modern IROC. And they should. Yeah, and you
don't want it to become what IROC became, which was basically a NASCAR series dominated by NASCAR drivers because they only raced on NASCAR tracks.
Yeah, you don't want that at all. That's what ultimately killed that series. And scheduling obviously certainly played a role in that too, and you just didn't share the limelight. Next one, Jerry Bunkowski wrote for Auto Week that IndyCar has made some questionable scheduling decisions even during COVID-19, and that scheduling needs to be more, quote, judicious, include more races and tracks going forward. Do you upshift or downshift?
Oh, this is a hard upshift. I'm glad you sent me this article because this is very true. IndyCar has had a severe problem in the past several years of basically having these month-long gaps for stupid reasons. I don't know what it is. I mean, last year I gave them the benefit of the doubt with COVID, but this year this is stupid. This is just completely stupid. You need to have more races that you could fill in these gaps. You can't canceling one race should not have caused a month-long gap in between races. I mean, that's kind of absurd when you think about it. That is kind of absurd. canceling one race. I mean, I understand if you cancel two, that I'd probably say, okay, well, there's the month. But one race and we don't race again for more than a month? Yeah. What? I mean, they're talking about. I remember they're getting done at Mid Ohio, and they're talking about Nashville, and I'm like, Nashville, isn't that like a month away? Wait a minute, that's the next race? This is ridiculous. Well, that's right. IndyCar. This is not just a situation that's prominent to IndyCar. This has happened like seasons and seasons. Like, go back and look at the IndyCar scheduling for seasons past, like 2012, 2013, 14, 15. I mean, they have month-long breaks in before the season finale, and this article that was written was perfect because it does kill their momentum. You kill the momentum all the time. First of all, you kill the momentum going to Detroit after Indianapolis. You kill the momentum there, and if the momentum isn't already fully killed yet, by the time you get to the summer break, it's completely dead because there's nothing going on. There's no news coming out. There's no silly season rumors. There's nothing to talk about. IndyCar is completely dead, and we have not talked about IndyCar at all this show because there's been no news, no races, no nothing until this question on this podcast. I mean, this is a serious problem. IndyCar needs to get things together, get more races on there, stop ending the freaking season by Labor Day, and they don't do it anymore, but seriously stop doing it. And in that frames, I gotta upshift with this. This is ridiculous. IndyCar, you guys gotta get better scheduling and gotta get better tracks on this schedule because this is sad. This can't continue.
I mean, I upshift as well. They definitely need to add at least more races, race weekends to the schedule. What tracks they go to? We obviously want more ovals, but yeah, they need to. I can get taking the 2 weeks off, like NASCAR's doing that. I think it's a great 2 weeks to take off. They need to have a race before those 2 weeks, just like NASCAR did. They should have been racing this past weekend. They should race when they come back.
And I understand the situations. They said they already explained this. It's harder to create a race out of nothing when you actually have to promote it on such short notice. It was easier to do that last year with COVID because you probably weren't going to allow fans anyway, so you didn't have to worry about promoting it. This year you do have to. I get that, but at the same time, I feel like when you have this question mark by Toronto, shouldn't you have all hands on deck to be getting something in the works to at the very least have something to occupy that month-long break that the absence of Toronto has created?
Yeah, they didn't do it. Last one here, 13 drivers have won a race through 22 races in the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series season. 2 more drivers will win for the first time in the final 4 regular season races. Do you upshift or downshift?
That's an easy upshift, dude. We have Watkins Glen, which is going to be a road course, which could be won by anybody. It'd probably be Chase Elliott, but it could also be won by anybody. Then you have the Indianapolis road course, which is, again, not really, it shouldn't be on the schedule to begin with. It should be at the Oval, but again, I've made that point very clear in the past, but that's a wild card too. And then you got Daytona. You get Daytona. That's also a wild card. It's really not that hard to see at least 2 more drivers, if not 3 more drivers winning. So I'm going to upshift.
I think it'll be 14, but I'm still going to upshift just for craps and giggles on this one because I think it'd be great to see 15 drivers get in and then you have like this Daytona fight and like that 15th driver win at Daytona. So it all comes down to like points and it will be Denny Hamlin because you would force the hand of Kevin Harvick.
Or they wreck everybody on the last lap because these guys don't know how to drive anymore on plate races. They just don't. Yeah. They don't. I'm sorry. I mean, we talk about this before. These guys lose their heads. I mean, they were talking about it in the broadcast on Sunday. Dale Jr. and Jeff Burton were talking about the give and take, the lack of give and take that exists in Cup Series now. I mean, they're not lying. They don't give or take. They only take when they're plate racing or super speedway racing or whatever it's called now. So if you have a bunch of drivers going for one spot in the playoffs at Daytona, NASCAR is going to have to prepare the PR statements for when there's some big fireball and the driver gets hurt, because I just don't like that scenario.
Well, it's the world we live in, I guess. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but we'll see. I still think 15 drivers is a bit of a long shot, but 14 I think is for sure. Right. I guess 2 hours, 13 minutes. We've gone long. We've gone really long, but there's a lot to talk about. 3 big points, and we had to talk about them.
That's the problem. We had so much to talk about today. It's not like this racing weekend was boring. It's not like we didn't have a ton of silly season news. We had this big silly season news dropped. We had 3 races that conjured a whole ton of discussion. I mean, we're sorry, we went over, okay? Can you blame us? There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to digest.
No one ever said you had to listen to this show all at once. You can break it up, you can listen to it in little parts. I rarely listen to one podcast. Unless I'm out walking all through at once. It's often multiple segments. All right, so Rollers featured Racetrack here. I made this shorter, kind of intentionally, for this reason. So, this may have been more fitting of a featured racetrack to talk about last week after the Camping World Truck Series race at Knoxville turned into a demolition derby. Because today I'm going to share a bit about the birthplace of the demolition derby.
Ooh, okay.
The track. So in 1928, the grounds at Islip Speedway, the field had one steel hangar and was founded by Charles Lawrence, the designer of the Wright radial engines. Hopes to expand the airport beyond a school for flying never really materialized, and beginning in 1946, construction of Islip Speedway began, and it opened on August 2nd, 1947. Now, in 1958, owner Larry Mendelson promoted the first recorded demolition derby, making Islip Speedway the birthplace of the demolition derby. The advertisement said that there would be 4 25-car demolition heats. The 4 winners would be given fresh cars, and they would compete for the championship in these vehicles. The winner would get $500 cash, and the other 3 runner-ups would get $100 for their trouble. Unfortunately, that's all I could really find on that. That I trusted sources-wise. I was really disappointed. I was going to say this earlier, but I was really disappointed there wasn't more on this Speedway because there's so much talked about it, and the way Freddie Kraft talks about it on Door Clear, I just feel like there'd be a plethora of information, and there really wasn't, again, that I trusted and that I wanted to mention on here. So, NASCAR rolled into Islip for the first time on July 15th, 1964. It became, and remains, the shortest track ever to host a race in what is today the Cup Series. 22 cars started the race, with half DNFing for a plethora of reasons. Billy Wade drove to victory, leading 205 of 300 laps, and lapping the entire field in a Bud Moore-owned Mercury. Ned Jarrett was second, and Richard Petty was third. The win was Wade's third straight in the Cup Series. He had won 5 days earlier on July 10th at Old Bridge in New Jersey. Bridgehampton on July 12th, that's also in New York. He would win at Watkins Glen on July 19th for 4 straight victories in a span of 10 days. This was like the Northeast swing. You know, we had the West Coast swing. Now, this was the Northeast swing. These are all victories were also with Bud Moore, by the way. We would sadly lose him the following January during a tire test at Daytona after a tire failed, and he tragically lost his life. The 1965 race was shortened, scheduled shortened from 300 to 250 laps. Marvin Panch replicated Wade's victory, lapping the entire field, but he led flag to flag. Panch drove a 65 Ford for the Wood brothers. Dick Hutcherson finished second, and Ned Jarrett was third. 22 cars started the July 14th race, but once again, only 11 finished. Bobby Allison was only 4 days removed from winning his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory at Oxford Plains Speedway in Maine when he won the July 16th, 1966 race at Islip for career win number 2. He wheeled his 65 Chevrolet to a 2-lap margin of victory over James Hilton's 65 Dodge and a 3-lap lead over Ned Jarrett's 64 Ford. Allison led only the final 8 laps after Hilton led 146 straight of the 300-lap event. I'm not sure what happened in those closing laps. Couldn't find out. But he won. Something happened to Hilton. Came back and got 2-lap lead on margin. That's crazy. So, again, this race took place during the Northeast Swing during this time, which began at Bridgehampton on July 10th, then to Oxford on July 12th, Fonda Speedway on July 14th, and it ended at Islip on July 16th. Bristol was the next race that year. That was 8 days later on July 24th, so they had a little break there. Hilton would later win his first Cup race at Richmond in 1970. The fourth race at Islip saw the King, Richard Petty, win by 3 laps over James Hilton. Again, on July 15th, 1967, he led the first 46 in the final 20 laps of the 300-lap event. 29 cars started, but only 10 finished. Hilton was second, and G.C. Spencer was third. 0.2 of a mile, 29 cars. That's a lot of cars. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, the Demolition Derby was 25. All right. On July 7th, 1968, Bobby Allison returned to victory lane. Islip's first repeat winner. This time, the margin of victory was 6 car lengths. Just 6 car lengths over David Pearson. And Holman Moody Ford, Buddy Baker was third. The NASCAR Cup Series did not visit Islip in 1969 or 1970, but returned for one final race in 1971. It was the largest NASCAR field with 33. 33. I mean, the leader takes the green flag. You're still in turn 2. I mean, holy cow. And kind of coincidentally, it was shortened just like this past weekend's race at New Hampshire. A scoring error meant that only 230 laps were completed of the 250 scheduled. Friday Hassler was a second place finisher to winner Richard Petty. It was his only second place finish of his career, and it was his best career finish in a 135 race career. Elmo Langley was third. Bobby Allison, the only other 2-time winner at Islip, was fourth. Islip did not return in 1972 or beyond because the schedule was slashed from 48 races in 1971 down to 31 in 1972. The start of the modern era, they cut off a bunch of short tracks, went to a lot of speedways. Is the way it worked. That's when Winston came in, so-called progress and probably some disgruntled residents who dumbly moved near the track, sound familiar on this podcast, brought the track to its ultimate demise, and it closed its doors for the final time in 1984. Today, industrial buildings occupy the land that Islip once produced some of the Northeast's greatest racing. Like I mentioned, I wish I could talk more about it, just couldn't find trustworthy information. But one thing we can all take a little bit of peace with is that it didn't become a mall. It just became industrial buildings that are still in use and not sitting abandoned with the ghosts of Christmas past haunting it. And somewhere in a department store is a box full of holiday decorations. So, there you go. Sorry, I had to throw that in. I'm a little bitter at the moment. I don't know why. So, that was Rollers Featured Racetrack there. Islip. So, I chose it for this week because this is when they traditionally race there in Islip for years. So, Rob, anything else before we go into what's in the windshield?
I have nothing else. My cat is asking for food, so I think we should really go into what's in the windshield.
Okay, well, what's in the windshield? Iowa Speedway isn't dead yet, folks. The ARCA Menard Series is at Iowa Speedway this Saturday, July 24th, and it will be a combination race with the ARCA East. Then the big ARCA will be in Winchester on July 31st.
Yeah.
Both of these weekends, the top 3 divisions for NASCAR are off because of the Olympics. Formula E racing is in London this weekend with races at the Excel London Exhibition Center on Saturday and Sunday. The Menard Series West returns to action on July 31st at Colorado National Speedway. Formula One has one more race on August 1st before the annual summer break. That race is at the Hungaroring for the Hungarian Grand Prix. As Rob, we talked a little bit earlier, the NTT IndyCar Series is still off for 2 more weeks before it drops the green flag on its inaugural Music City Grand Prix on the streets of Nashville on Sunday, August 8th. NASCAR's top 3 divisions are back at Watkins Glen on August 7th and 8th. The Camping World Truck Series and Xfinity Series doublehead Saturday. The Cup Series will race on Sunday. The ARCA Menard Series will also be in attendance. They will race on Friday evening, and it will be the 5th straight week of racing for the big ARCA Tour. They're going to love the week or 2 break they get when it comes around. So that's it for the show today, folks. Thanks for listening. We know we went long. Lots to talk about. 3-4 major points we had to just talk about. We could not just ignore it. And we had a lot of spirited debate. Rob and I disagreed. It's good when we disagree. I like it. we get a little heated sometimes, but I tell you what, we're still friends at the end of this, and you can trust that from us here. So thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking around, even if you listen to us in a couple different segments. Let us know what we're doing, how we're doing, I should say. Play along with the featured paint scheme. Let us know your thoughts on the upshift, downshift, and socials. Make sure to follow Rob at RPEETERS33 on Twitter, and I'm Roller_01, ROLLER_01 on Twitter as well. The show, Robin Roller, at Robin Roller on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and search Racing with Robin Roller on YouTube. You can find our shows on there as well. So, hey, thanks for listening. Enjoy this week of racing, or what is going on anyways, and we'll be back next week. So, have a good week, everybody. For Rob Peeters, I'm Josh Roller. This was the Racing with Robin Roller podcast.